I'm back. I don't know why I'm on late on a weeknight. It's because I'm desperate to get through Karen Reed. Hello, hello. Can you guys see me, hear me okay? Are we good? Hello. Welcome back to Mellyverse. We just covered Diddy on the last live. Y'all, make sure you check out the lives I did over the weekend. I have a really good deep dive coming. Maybe tomorrow. Actually, no. Probably not tomorrow. Wednesday. Because I'm here tonight rather than editing. But I really, really need to get caught up on Karen Reed. Hello. Welcome back. These are Melly After Darks. For who? For who what? Good to see you on a weeknight. I do go live on the weeknights, but I don't usually go on super late. I do actually. I didn't last week, I don't think. But hey, number 7. I don't know. I'm confused now. Nonetheless, I am so behind on Karen Reed. We just come here, hang out, chit chat, drink a beer, drink your water, whatever you want to do. Day 11. Oh my God, I'm like so behind. I think they're on day 21. Don't come for me, please. I will get caught up. I will do it. Okay. Some of it, the parts that I don't necessarily, that aren't super important, we can skip through. I'm going to have to Google while we're on here who's going to be testifying on the days, because I don't even know. But kill a swag. Did she say that the next few people are boring? Okay, we might have to fast forward through some of this. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna Google.
Good morning, sir. Follow me.
I'm like OCD though. I need to hear like everything. I'm like one of those true crime junkie people. I'm like I need to hear everything and know everything
Thank you, clerk. Thank you.
regarding true crime.
You solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now hearing should be truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Who's this?
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spell your last name for the record?
Sure, my name is Connor Keefe. The last name is Keefe.
Mr. Keefe, where do
Where
you
is
work?
Laura?
I work for the Massachusetts State Police.
What's your position with the Massachusetts State Police?
I'm assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
Are you a
Oh.
trooper?
Yes,
When did you first start beginning working as a Massachusetts State Police trooper?
2017.
Did you go to basic training?
Yes, the academy.
How long was the academy?
Approximately 6 months.
Did you have any further training after?
I'm
the
being a
academy?
bad girl. I'm having drinks during the week.
On the job training
Yes.
Who's gonna get me in
Yes.
trouble?
in various specialties.
What's your role at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office?
I am assigned to the homicide unit where we investigate homicides, unattended deaths, suicides, stuff like that. And I'm also a digital forensic
I'm
examiner
Googling who is.
at the District Attorney's Office.
Did you have a role in investigating this case?
Yes,
Were you assigned investigator in this case?
I won't tell.
I wasn't the main investigator, but I was involved, yes.
Did you deal with any of the digital forensic evidence?
Yes,
Specifically, regarding the digital forensic evidence, did you meet anybody to obtain a phone?
yes.
Who did you meet?
I met Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts.
When you met with them, did you have to obtain anything from them?
I
So
obtained
this guy ends up testifying about what time Macabre looked up how's long to die in the cold. So I
a
think this
consent
is pretty
form
important.
and their cellular device.
After you received their devices, where did you bring them?
They were brought back to the forensics lab located at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
And what, if anything, did you do with either or both phones?
I conducted a forensic extraction on those devices.
An extraction, is that a copying an image of the phone?
Yes,
Is that different than analyzing the phone?
yes,
Were you involved in analyzing Kerry Roberts' phone?
no,
Were you involved in
No.
analyzing Jennifer McCabe's phone?
no.
Stop blinking. Wait,
Was your role limited to attaching it to grade key and doing the
it's
extraction?
done.
That is correct.
Blinky.
And did you
I
do that?
Yes,
That was fault.
In addition to the phone extractions, if you take us back to January 29, 2022, were you involved in going to 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts?
yes.
Do you know about what time you went there?
Approximately 5:30.
What was your role at 34 Fairview Road that evening?
I was asked to
Yes, that was
by
Jen.
my supervisor, Lieutenant Brian Tully, to assist in processing the scene at 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts.
When you arrived at 34 Fairview Road, was there anybody else there?
Yes,
Who was there?
Lieutenant Tully, members of the Massachusetts State Police CERT team, the Special Emergency Response Team.
Are you part of the CERT team?
I am not.
Did you see what the CERT team was doing?
They were conducting an area search very front of the lawn and the street or road in front of 34 Fairview.
Did you have any role in that actual searching of evidence?
No, I did not.
What was your role, limited role that night?
To process any evidence that was discovered during the search.
When you say process the evidence, can you explain briefly, what does that mean?
Sure, I was had evidence bags, and if a piece of evidence or an item was found, I would place that item
The red
into
solo
evidence bag
cups.
And why would you do that?
Yeah.
to secure it.
How would you become aware if there was a piece of evidence found?
The CERT team would alert
Hi, Abuelita's journey.
the supervisor, Lieutenant Tully, or
I'm glad you
myself
made it.
that there was an item or a piece of evidence, and Lieutenant Tully would then take a photograph of it,
Absolutely
and then I would
criminal. That's
secure
right.
the piece of
I've heard that a
evidence
lot.
in a bag, evidence bag.
Do you know if those photographs were time-stamped?
I believe so.
Your role was to put the evidence in the bag and return it to the evidence room?
Correct.
Did you do that?
Yes.
If I could begin, I'd like to show you on the screen a series of exhibits. If we could start with Exhibit 74, please. Trooper, do you recognize that item?
Yes.
What is it?
That is a black Nike shoe.
Did you see that item that night?
Yes.
74A, please.
What up, gas mask?
74B. Thank you. Is that the same?
You better,
sneaker?
Jules.
Yes, sir.
After you were alerted to that sneaker, did you place that sneaker into an evidence bag?
Yes.
Did you bring that item with you today?
Yes.
Do you have gloves?
Yes, sir.
Where the hell was this shoe? Right?
Do you want the lights on, Mr. Brennan?
Please, thank you, Your Honor. And Ms. Gilman, you can take the photo down, please. With the court's permission, I'm going to move this piece of evidence, item into evidence. Let me ask you a few questions before you open it. Could you stand and show that
Yes, sir.
bag? There's red tape on it. What's that for?
To secure the bag closed.
If the bag is open, is it then retaped?
Yes.
Do you write on the outside of the bag?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
To memorialize the date, time when the evidence was collected.
Could you open the bag and show us what's in it?
Yes, sir.
Wait, are they gonna pull up the red solo cups? Hmm. 14. What up?
With the court's permission, can he show
Yeah,
the
this
item?
guy should be at home really. Look
Trooper,
at
is that the
Karen.
same item that you found that night?
Yes, sir.
If you could place it back in the bag, I'd ask this to be marked as an exhibit.
All right, any objections, Dean? Any?
There is no objection.
Exhibit 77.
Sir, you mentioned there's writing on the outside of the bag.
Yes.
What type of information do you write on the bag?
Date, time, location, who was collecting it.
The time that you write in the bag, is that the specific time the item was found, or does that represent a different time?
That could represent a different time.
And why would that be?
If you're processing multiple things at once, you're bagging things at different times. Then when you seal the
Or
bag,
not
that could
bagging
be the
them at
time that
all
is annotated
and
on the
using
bag.
red solo cups?
Can the item be found before the time on that bag?
Yes.
Would you ever write a time later than when the item was found?
Yes.
I'd like to move now to Exhibit 75, please. And preferably 75A, please. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Is that one of the items you bagged that night?
Yes.
And if we could turn to
What is
76A,
that?
please.
Oh, the light?
Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Is that an item that you bagged that night?
Yes.
Do you
Can we
have
get
both of those
closer?
items with you?
Yes, sir.
Could you produce those, please? Ms. Gilman, you could take that down, please. Thank you. 570.
Yes, sir.
With the court's permission, I'd ask the trooper to open the bag and show the
Poor
jury.
Jean. Cheers. Don't come for me because of my straw. Get over it. Are you over it? Good. So much drama. So much drama. You better be. I was about to get mad at you, Jules. I thought you did.
Sir, on those items that are stickers, did you put the stickers on them?
I did not.
Do you know where the stickers come from?
I'm drinking
I do
the
not.
Modelo.
Do you know
That's
if these
beer. You're
items were
drinking
ever
Modelo.
sent to anybody other than
It's
your
like a
evidence
bowl
locker? Are they
of
ever
Sauvignon.
removed and given to lab personnel and technicians?
Yes.
What does
Do
that
you know if that
mean?
was done in this case?
Yes.
And I like
Inside
minestrone.
that bag, is there just two
What do you-
pieces or is there another piece in that bag?
What does that
There
mean?
was another piece in the bag.
When you put the taillight pieces in that bag, how many pieces did you put in the bag?
I put 2.
Do you know if the other piece in the bag is a piece that broke off? Or do you know how that arrived there?
I do not.
Could you,
This is the Melly After Dark, so don't get your panties up in the bunch. This isn't like drinking. This is like drinking and hanging out. This isn't your typical true crime lives where we don't drink and it's more, serious. Make sure you guys follow my TikTok because I'm gonna start getting wild over there. I'm gonna start posting a lot over there, so make sure you guys are following. I'll drop the link in a second.
you just pull out
Back
that
to
other
Connor.
small piece and show the jury as well?
Isn't that chilada like tomato soup and beer? No, it's good. I like tomato soup too.
Is that smaller piece
I'm
consistent with the
using-
same color as the two bigger pieces?
Yes.
Is it consistent with the same
Hey,
material?
LaShawn.
Yes.
If you
Hey,
could put that back in
buds.
the bag, please. I'd move this into evidence, please.
Okay. Thank you, very sorry.
Okay.
Let's see. I like to see Karen Cam. There's Alan Jackson. Hi, baby. Okay, let's see. Mature audiences only. Ew. That's disgusting. Regine. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, so let's see. John's mom. Who are these people? Oh, there's John O'Keefe's brother right here. I don't know who this lady is. Yeah, I don't know who the rest of these females are. Okay, fast forward.
Exhibit and this exhibit.
Yes.
Could you produce those, please?
Yes.
God, what the heck is going on? There's a man passed out in the snow. No, but in all honesty, RIP, justice for John O'Keefe. This trial has absolutely ruined that possibility 100%. All the controversy, Karen, I think it's
Are
overshadowed.
these different in color than the last pieces you showed?
Yes.
The corruption,
With the court's permission,
Has
could the trooper show
overshadowed.
these pieces?
Yes.
I think, why we're really here. I ain't hating. No, this is Karen Reed. What is he doing? Why is he showing it like that?
Thank you, Trooper. I've moved these items.
Did you
to
see him?
evidence.
No objection.
He's like, are you looking? Are you looking?
Exhibit 80.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trooper Keefe.
Thanks.
That's right. He says, yeah, but did
Alright,
you
any
see him? He's
questions
like,
for Steve
look. And his eyes got really big. I'm like, I can see it.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
I
sir.
can see it.
Trooper Keefe, you testified that you received
Got it. Back.
the
I'm
cell
over here
phone
too,
of
just being
Jennifer McCabe and of Terry Roberts.
Correct.
With regard to the cell phone of Jennifer McCabe in particular, you had her sign what is called a consent form, correct?
That's correct.
What is a consent form?
It allows the trooper or law enforcement to, with the owner's consent, we are able to conduct an extraction of the device.
Okay. And on that consent form, there is a description of the item itself.
Yes.
In this case, it would have been an iPhone 11.
Yes.
Oh, you're in trouble,
And,
Austin.
There also is
Yes.
an identifier with regard to a specific phone called the IMEI number.
The International Mobile
¿Dónde?
Equipment Identifier.
Okay.
¿Dónde estabas?
And that would be included on the form as well because it identifies the specific iPhone 11 that Jennifer McCabe had, correct?
Correct.
The
Yes,
password
Justice
was
Jane.
provided on that consent
Justice
form,
for John.
Yes.
and the form was signed, correct?
Yes.
By
What do you mean,
both
Austin?
Jennifer McCabe and by you, correct?
Yes.
And there was also a second trooper that would have signed the form as well.
That's correct.
With regard to the timing of the signing of that form, Jennifer McCabe dated it February 2nd of 2022.
February
Yes.
2nd.
You also dated it February 2nd of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Jennifer McCabe did not list a time, but you did.
Why are you
correct?
hating, Austin?
I would have to look at the consent form.
Okay, so your memory, you don't remember what time you indicated or if you indicated the time, but looking at the consent form would refresh your memory?
Yes.
May I approach you, Honor?
Yes.
Chief. Selective remembering. What is going
I
on
just
here?
ask you to read that silently and then look up at me when you're done, Trooper.
Look up at me. Connor.
Having reviewed that form, does that refresh your memory as to whether you indicated a date and time?
I did, yes.
And what was the date and time that you indicated?
It was February 2nd, 2022, 12:08.
And that would have been
12:08
12:08 p.m.?
Correct. 12:08 p.m.
The document that I handed you is not an original, correct?
No, it's not.
Does it appear to be a precise copy of the original, however?
Yes.
May I offer that into evidence, Your Honor,
Is
please?
there an objection, Mr. Brennan?
No, subject to redaction.
Okay. So don't put it up on the,
I will not.
Exhibit 81.
This case is
Now,
okay.
as of
Let me know.
January 29th,
Let me know. I know some of you are always here and I know what you think about Karen Reed. Let me know. Is she guilty? Do you want to date her? Is she innocent? What's the vibe? Let me know.
2022, you were colleagues in the same state police unit.
Do you want to
as
date her? Do
Michael
you want to
Proctor,
kiss her?
correct?
I'll say
I was.
you better stay in here. Where were you
At
the
that
last time?
time, was the unit called the
Sleeping?
CPAC unit or was it called Norfolk County Detectives?
Wake up.
I
Karen
don't recall when it
Reed.
changed.
Okay, it's been
Number
called
7, I know
both,
what
correct?
you
It has.
think.
As of January
Frame.
29th of
Good one.
2022, there were only
Good
10 troopers in
one.
the unit, including supervisors, correct?
Corruption at every level.
I don't know.
It's a small unit, is it not?
Relatively small.
Within the CPAC or the Norfolk County Detectives, every case that comes in is assigned to one particular trooper as
Or
the
framed.
lead
Good point.
investigator
I
in the
believe
case,
that.
correct?
That is something that a supervisor would do, not me.
And have you been assigned as the lead investigator in other investigations?
No, not a homicide investigation, no.
You have not yet.
No,
The lead investigator is the trooper who is responsible for the case, correct?
yes,
Michael Proctor was the lead investigator for the investigation into the death of John O'Keefe, was he not?
yes.
If somebody asked within your unit while this case was going on, whose case is it or who has that case, your answer would have been Michael Proctor, correct?
Pooper Proctor.
The two of you have worked cases together in the past, correct?
A few,
You've worked on this case with Michael Proctor, correct?
yes,
And in fact, within your work on this case, you
Cooper
actually
Proctor.
partnered with him for certain assignments within the case, did you not?
you'll have to be more specific.
Sure. So for instance,
David
on
Yannetti.
October 21 of 2022, you and Michael Proctor interviewed
I like
Sarah
him.
Levinson together, correct?
No, I don't recall that.
If I may just have a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
Why all the drama, the paper, the bag? What's his deal? Not my type. Paper drama. I don't know. He reminds me of someone, and it's not. I don't know who, and it's not a good one. Not a good thing.
Okay,
Not impressed.
Do you not remember
Not
interviewing
impressed.
Sarah Levinson on October 21 of 2022 at 12:20 p.m. at the Norfolk DA's office? Is that your current testimony?
Yes,
Okay. If you saw a copy of that report, would that refresh your memory?
to an extent.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
There's David Yannetti. You're not. You're not the only one.
No, not at all.
Oh, who's whispering? Hmm? Sidebar. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I have an idea for sidebars this weekend. I see her catching manslaughter rather than murder. Yeah. I don't have a good feeling. I don't have a good feeling. I'm sorry. I know you guys don't want to hear that. Oh my gosh, I'll say that's hilarious. That's what I always think too. It's funny.
I've placed a document in front of you. I would just ask you to read
8
that
to
silently
12
to yourself.
out and 4.5.
Look up at me when you're done.
Damn. 4.5? Oh my God. What is everybody going to do if she's found guilty, like all the Karen people? I mean, I'm like, don't ask my opinion yet. I need to think more about this. Oh, yes, pardon. Fry can. Oh my god. What's going on? Oh, is he reading something? Connor Keefe. Whoa, he almost has the same last name.
And Trooper Keefe, just so we're clear, I'm not going to ask you any questions about the specifics of what Sarah Levinson said, so you
I just
don't
like
have to
to-
brush up on that.
I just like
Whoa,
to refresh.
whoa. Don't interrupt him, Connor. Don't interrupt David Yannetti. Oh my god, this is frustrating. Like, what is this deal?
Having reviewed that report, does that refresh your memory as to whether or not you participated in an interview of Sarah Levinson with Michael Proctor on October 21st of 2022?
Yes, I don't recall the specifics, but
So when you say yes, is it your current testimony that your memory is refreshed that you were actually there?
yes,
Okay. And the two of you would have participated in that interview together, correct?
yes,
But you did not write the report, correct?
no, I did not.
Michael Proctor wrote the report, correct?
Oh, Pooper
Yes, he-
He was the lead
Proctor.
investigator writing the report, correct?
Mm-mm. I don't like
Yes, he
Pooper
wrote this
Proctor.
report.
He chose the language
No,
to use in
no.
that report, correct?
I did not have any input on how he wrote this report.
Right. You had no input. You weren't standing over him while he was typing it, correct?
Correct.
Now, other examples of, and actually, let me take that back from you if you don't mind. May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm shocked.
Other examples are the reports on the videos that well, strike that. Let me start by saying this. Asking you this. You retrieved videos from both the Waterfall Bar and Grill and CF McCarthy's, did you not?
That's correct.
You and Sergeant Buchanan retrieved the videos from
Okay.
CF McCarthy's, correct?
Yes,
But lead detective or lead investigator Michael Proctor was the one to analyze the video and write a report on it, correct?
Pooper Proctor.
I would have to see that report, sir.
Sure.
He has to see the report. If you don't remember who Trooper Proctor is, he's the one who was talking nasty in the text messages about Karen Reed being poopy and all these other things. Ugh, disgusting.
If I may approach?
Okay.
And he got fired. He's the one that got fired for lying and being a nasty human.
And again,
Leaky
you have
balloon knot.
something
That's what it
yourself,
was.
look up to me when you're done.
Is he still looking over? Because he's like, what did I lie about? What happened? I don't know, but maybe that could explain why his eyes were like bugging. I mean, we're just stating the fact. What we're seeing, that's all we're doing. Everyone chill out.
Okay, having reviewed that report,
Don't
does that
get your
refresh your
panties a
memory
bunch.
about Michael Proctor being the one to write the report on the analysis of the waterfall video?
Sir, I only obtained a copy of the surveillance video. I
Right.
did not do any analysis on the video.
That's my question. It was Michael Proctor who did the analysis, correct?
Yes,
And that, by the way, I said waterfall. Is that C.F. McCarthy's there, or is that waterfall?
this is C.F. McCarthy's.
Okay, I meant C.F. McCarthy's. He was the one
I
to
would
review
to
that
see-
video, correct?
Yes, again, I only got a copy of the surveillance video.
Sure.
I did not do any
And
analysis.
with regard to the waterfall bar and grill, that was another circumstance where you and Sergeant Buchanan were the ones to retrieve the video, correct?
Ukaki is what I heard his
But
name was.
again, lead investigator Michael Proctor was the one to analyze the video and write the report on it, correct?
Yes, I would have to see that report as well, sir.
Now, another member
He's
of
like, I need my
your
driver's
unit
license to remember who I am.
was Trooper David
need to see it.
DeCicco, correct?
Show me.
Yes,
Proctor, not
Within your
Cooper.
unit, did,
Cooper.
Trooper DeCicco have a nickname for a first name?
Objection.
May we approach?
Oh, now they're telling secrets. Just kidding. Sidebar. Oh, I like to always be nosy and watch like everyone walking. I like to look at their clothes. You know what I mean? Just be like nosy.
Dr. Correct?
yes.
Oh,
And
wait,
you met
wait,
her
wait, wait,
prior.
wait. What did he just say?
Trooper, in terms of the troopers that were in your
Only
unit
fans.
as of January 29th of 2022, which members of the unit had the least amount of time in the unit at that time?
I don't recall.
Were you one of the newer members of the unit?
As of January of 2022?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I love that song.
Trooper Michael Proctor had more experience than you did as of January 29th of 2022, correct?
He could have. He'd been on the job longer.
Okay, well, if he had been on the job longer, then certainly that means that he did have more experience, correct?
It depends.
You attended the autopsy of John O'Keefe on January 31st of
I did.
2022. And with regard to other members of your unit, you were the only one to attend that autopsy?
Yes.
That was done at the medical examiner's office
The medical examiner's office in Sandwich, Massachusetts.
in Sandwich, Mass. And
Sandwich.
it was Dr. Irene
Sandwich?
Sporty Bello who performed the autopsy, correct?
Yes.
Had you met her prior to that day?
Oh, I love her.
No.
Had you spoken to her prior to that day?
No.
Did you know before the autopsy was performed that your former colleague, lead investigator Michael Proctor,
Hey, not
had
dumb.
discussed the case with Dr. Sporty Bello without telling us what you knew of what was said?
Objection.
With regard to Dr. Sporty Bello's knowledge of what the state police theory was of what happened, did you have to explain that, or was it your understanding she already knew what your theory was?
Objection.
Mrs. Staines, you can ask that differently.
Sporty Bello.
What, if any, conversations
I can't wait
did
for
you
her.
have
Go back on? Does she go back
with
on?
Dr. Sporty Bello about what your unit's theory was about what happened to John O'Keefe?
There was no theory.
Okay. You did not provide any theory to her, correct?
I did not provide a theory.
You learned at the autopsy from your observations that John O'Keefe had 2 black eyes and a swollen right eye, correct?
Yes.
You also learned that there was a small cut above his right eye, correct?
Yes.
And there was a small abrasion on the left side of his nose, correct?
I would have to reference the report for the exact words.
Okay. If I may have a moment. May I approach, Your Honor?
You want this one back?
Oh, please, thank you.
Hey, Smog.
So I placed another document in front of you. Just take a look, read it silently to yourself, and look up at me when you're done.
I love when they say that. Like, look up at me now. You know what I
And I would
mean?
direct your attention to the second page for the question I just asked you.
This trial is nuts. Do it. Do it. Why was he allowed to attend the autopsy alone? Good question, Dodge.
Trooper, is your memory refreshed as to whether you observed a small abrasion on the left side of John O'Keefe's nose?
Yes.
Now, was this the first autopsy that you had attended, or have you
Growing.
attended ones in the past?
I cannot recall.
All of the
Could have been
above.
the first one?
Most likely not.
When you're attending an autopsy as a member of the CPAC unit or the Norfolk Detectives Unit, you are expecting that the medical examiner is going to examine the body, correct?
Yes.
And you're there to witness that examination, correct?
Yes.
At the end of the examination, you are expecting that there will be a determination as to cause and manner of death, correct?
Not.
In this case, when the autopsy ended, you left the medical examiner's office, correct?
Yes.
When you left, your understanding was that the cause and manner of death was still undetermined, correct?
Objection.
You knew when you left that Dr. Scorti-Bello had seen the scratches or bites or injuries to John O'Keefe's arms, correct?
Objection.
You knew when you left that in your presence, Dr. Scorti-Bello had seen the injuries to John O'Keefe's arm.
Object to the line of questioning.
Sustained.
May we approach?
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stand up.
Joey, don't be a hater. Don't do it. Don't kill the vibe. Just have a good time. Just chill out. Okay? You good? All right. Let's move on. You guys' favorite is on the screen. May I present to you the fan? You want to kiss it? Do you want to hump it? What do you want to do? The fan. I'm just messing with you. Please do not try that at home, please. What's going on here? Okay, I'm gonna pass one.
The end of it,
Oh, I don't want to miss beautiful Unity. Let me see. Let me go back. Core moving hands. What is your job? What's my job? Oh my god, I already need another Modelo.
were you watching Dr. Scorti-Bello as she was conducting the autopsy?
Yes.
Did she appear to be looking at John O'Keefe's body?
Objection.
It's the
If you
same
don't know who Scorti Bello is, she is the medical examiner who performed the autopsy on John O'Keefe.
thing. Just ask her again.
What direction were her eyes facing when she was examining John O'Keefe's body?
I don't recall.
Okay. Was she looking at the ceiling,
Me?
Trooper?
She was doing her job conducting the autopsy.
And
She was
in
looking
order to
at
do
the
that,
body.
I'm sorry?
She was looking at the body.
Don't
I assume.
interrupt him.
Not in-
Thank you. And looking at the body, you saw her looking at the body, correct?
Yes,
And looking at the body included an arm,
This guy
correct?
annoys me.
yes,
And it was at the arm was not covered up during the autopsy, correct?
no,
It was open for you to see, correct?
yes,
And you saw the injuries to John O'Keefe's arm, correct?
yes.
You didn't see any bruising on his arm, correct?
He's like, I don't remember. What's my
I don't
name?
recall.
You didn't notice any obvious broken bones,
Oh
did
my
you?
God, I was right.
I'm not a medical expert.
Oh, now you're not an expert, Connor?
And it is common practice for the state police to attend autopsies when there's an undetermined death, correct?
Yes,
It is not at all common for the defense to attend an autopsy, correct?
Watch him drink water.
I've never experienced that.
Right. And there was no defense attorney or defense expert at the autopsy of John O'Keefe, correct?
Not when I was there.
You were there, correct?
Uh-oh.
Yes.
And there was nothing that prevented you from giving input to the doctor as she examined the body, correct?
We don't give input. We give the facts that we know so far in the case.
Oh, boy.
Well, giving the facts is giving input, is it not?
It's not
Here we
input.
go with the facts.
Okay.
I
Did you
can't.
talk to Dr. Scorti-Bello during the autopsy?
Just can't.
Yes,
And you gave her information, if you don't want to call it input, correct?
yes,
And at the end of it, you left without her ruling it a homicide, correct?
Objection.
I have nothing further.
You left without ruling it.
No, none, thank you.
All right, you're all set, Trooper.
Ooh,
thank you.
So,
sorry, Connor.
jurors, this break we're going to take now.
Someone tell Connor to have some water because it ain't looking too good for him. Let's see what Bev has to say. What does Bev have to say tonight? Oh,
All right, we're going to take a break. The lawyers and I have some work that we have to do, so it's a little bit longer break than we normally take, and it's a little bit earlier, but we did get coffee for you, so we'll take a recess now.
we got coffee for you. We need to talk that we got you coffee.
Please, close your notebook, follow me.
Coffee from the 7-Eleven down the street. Okay, let's go back. There's nothing wrong with it. It's probably good. I ain't judging it. I'm just saying. Okay, wait. What are we doing? Here we go. Ugh, back to the fan. Wait, why? The Kana. Okay, wait. Don't move a bone. If you even move a bone, I'm gonna get another drink. While the fan is on. Enjoy the fan. Enjoy it. Look at it. Love it. What? Ooh, what? Let me get another. No buzz balls.
So I want to talk a little bit more about what we talked about at sidebar. And I read the decision from Maryland, just cursory while we were waiting for the witness. And that was a March decision. And I can't stress enough that this should have been brought up before today. So I'll hear you about your concerns, Mr. Alessi. I'll hear the Commonwealth's response, then I'll go finish reading everything else you gave me. So what are your concerns about Jessica Hyde? I don't know if she's Dr. Hyde or what, but I remember she testified the last trial, so you have transcripts.
Understood, Your Honor. I first want to just get the evidentiary basis. This is straightforward judicial notice. There are two separate decisions which require two separate.
One's a Massachusetts case. So
No,
that's
you can't
easy.
even move a tissue. Don't even
So,
breathe.
and that's a shall.
It's an
Don't even
SJC
breathe.
case, so yes.
Yes, okay. So now to the Maryland case. So that's
Were you guys here on
federal,
whatever day when I broke up with the
Massachusetts,
buzzballs?
Rule 39.
Oh, I can't explain.
And that is records of courts of other states or of the
It's a
United States.
love
The
and
act
hate
provision
relationship.
is the records and judicial
I wish I could.
proceedings, and of course, a court is judicial proceedings, of a court of another state or of the United States shall be competent evidence in this Commonwealth if authenticated by the attestation of the clerk or other officer who has charge of the records of such court under its seal. So I have with me, Your Honor, that State v. Herrera, Maryland case. I have the certified copy with me from the clerk.
All right, so we can mark that for identification.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach?
Yes.
I witnessed.
CC for ID.
You guys
Okay,
did?
thank you.
Okay. Well,
So,
I didn't break up with them. It was just,
assuming
It was
Your
just a
Honor
night.
determines that the seal
you know, one of those
is
nights.
the seal, it is a mandatory under the rule that it shall be competent evidence.
We'll be back.
It shall be in evidence. And to the extent the Commonwealth seeks to argue relevancy or materiality, that argument is precluded, Your Honor. And the best evidence of that preclusion is the immediate section below in Rule 39, which is notice of foreign law, which is not this, but it says there, the court shall upon request take judicial notice of the law of the United States or of any state, territory, dependency thereof, or of a foreign country, whenever it shall be material. So the drafters of this rule knew how to put in a qualification or condition when they introduced materiality in B, but they didn't do it in A.
Okay, so focus on what it is you think Jessica Hyde should be prohibited from testifying about.
Oh, Your Honor, I am not seeking to prohibit her from any testimony under this rule. What I want to do is to have it admitted in evidence, have it published, and question her on what she presented to the court in the Maryland case, what was presented, her report, because it was deemed not reliable. And that is what.
In one area, right? One specific area?
Well, you can call it one.
The decision.
Right. Oh, yeah, just what's in the decision, but there's two parts to that decision, two areas. It's FLH, frequent location history.
Right.
But what the court also got at was Apple source codes, that she didn't have the Apple source code.
Nobody in the country has the Apple source codes, right?
Point exactly, Your Honor.
So what is it that, so you want to put in her report and question her about a proceeding in Maryland? I need to know exactly what you're asking.
If I could
Oh my
need
gosh.
to give you the answer, Your Honor, I will explain it. It's a very short answer.
Okay.
What I want to do is with regard to her 227 timestamp and her anticipated testimony on that, where she uses a tool, Celebrite, to determine and come to a conclusion about that timestamp. She is not using Apple's source code to find out where that's located specifically in the phone and what it means. She is using a surrogate to do that. And I want to cross-examine her on the topic using this decision to say in Maryland, you tried to do the same thing with regard to FLH. You tried to use a surrogate approach and make an opinion about whether that is in fact what's in the phone. She can't do it, and that means her testimony on 227 is not reliable. I'm not looking to exclude it. I'm looking to cross her on her reliability for the conclusions I anticipate she's going to make on 227.
So if she is not asked about that, then what?
Oh, if she's not asked about the 227, and I want to think about it, but I'm 99% certain I am not going to pursue that at all.
Okay, what do you say, Mr. Brennan?
This is an attempt to try to malign a witness with something that's wholly unrelated and not relevant to what she's going to testify to or the basis for her opinion. It is not a law that is admissible. It's an opinion. It wasn't even about a specific case. It was about a peer review. And so in a Daubert hearing, the court did not allow testimony on significant location. That's not the case here. Try to conflate the argument saying it has something to do with Apple 227. There is absolutely no basis for that argument. They want to say that another court rejected something about you, therefore the jury should reject you. There is no relationship between what she is going to testify as a basis and that opinion. That opinion did not say she was wrong. It said that it was not admissible under Daubert, unrelated. Nobody has the Apple source code. No expert can testify about Apple source code. It's only owned by Apple. And so using the words like surrogate as a way to try to cheapen her testimony in front of the jury. This here, number one, what he said, I really can't follow him. I don't understand, other than he's trying to draw some type of relevance and materiality. There's none. There's none. This is not a denouncement. She hasn't been found incredible. There's nothing about her methodology that has been rejected by a court. This is on significant location, and although she looked at it, that's not part of this opinion whatsoever. And so because another court didn't allow something under a Daubert, has nothing to do with this case, nothing.
And what is it that you expect her to testify to, Mr. Brennan, regarding the 207 stamp? We did not have this issue with Mr. Whiffen, right? This was not raised with Mr. Whiffen.
Oh, it was. The 227 timestamp.
No, that was raised, but this,
Everybody settle down.
what was
Settle down.
problematic
Settle down in the
in
courtroom,
Maryland, the same thing that was problematic in Arrington.
Order in
That's
the
correct, Your Honor. It
courtroom.
wasn't raised because Mr. Whiffen has not been advertised with regard to Apple source codes. And if I could, Your Honor.
Okay,
Mr. Brennan has made a relevance argument. He keeps anticipating by cross, which he has incorrect, by saying it's not relevant. That doesn't go to the admissibility in my cross. I'm entitled to cross her on her reliability. And if I could, Your Honor, in the State Herrera decision, if Your Honor would look at page 3, please, at the bottom, the paragraph, it says, in assessing the reliability of an expert's methodology, I get to do that on cross. It's not limited to a Daubert hearing. Every expert can be crossed on their reliability of their methodology. And lastly, with regard to the Apple source code, if Your Honor would please turn to page 6, the last paragraph, it says the issue raised in this case stems from the fact that Apple's algorithms are proprietary and the expert did not have access. That's exactly the situation here and what I want to cross her on. So in conclusion, Your Honor, the fact that how she tried to get around the Apple source code, her methodology in the Herrera case, she got Daubertized on because it wasn't reliable. That's exactly what I want to cross her on, is her reliability, how she's trying to get around them. In this case, it's just basic cross-examination.
You can see the plan to dehumanize somebody, Daubertized, to use a term to suggest some type of conclusion that has no basis in fact, is an attempt to just dehumanize her and limit her testimony and credibility without any basis in fact. In that case, it did not deal with the search of a tab and a suspended state in Safari. It didn't deal with the timestamp. It was an entirely different issue. By their analysis, if an expert goes into court on a motion on anything to do with data forensics and the court says that issue is not admissible, they should be impeached when they go and talk about a totally different issue in forensic data analysis at another case. They have not shown any evidence that this issue has anything to do with her effort in the timestamp. They just used the word methodology. Her methodology was questioned in an opinion in a different court. Has nothing to do with her opinions here. What information do they have that her methodology in this analysis has been rejected by any court? What evidence do they have that the methodology used in this case is unreliable?
Give me your phone.
They don't have any. In fact, they called an expert themselves in the last case who tried to provide what he believed to be methodology, and they presented that. They proffered that evidence as reliable. No different on this subject. Herrera case is a totally different subject.
Your Honor, first of all, as the court has noted, the first trial is the first trial. This is this trial. I wasn't at the first trial. The most important and probative aspect, Your Honor, is I don't want to have to give away my entire cross in this argument.
no one's asking you to. I'm not asking you to.
There is parts of Ms. Hyde's slide that go to location. There's a good part of her slide presentation. I don't want to.
Oh, now you want
the 227, but the good part of her slide presentation that she should present is on location. It is with regard to health data steps. So there are certainly aspects directly relevant. here is the issue with the 227 in addition. There is, for her methodology, she's claiming a certain conclusion and opinion about the 227. There is no peer review. There is no article that she can cite to support her methodology to come to the conclusion that the 227 timestamp, one, doesn't exist anymore, or two, doesn't mean that the search occurred at 227. That's what she's opined on in her reports pre-trial, and that's what I anticipate she's going to opine on when she takes the stand. I'm entitled to cross her on that. We can't be saddled, it's irrelevant what our witnesses said in another proceeding. It's what this witness is going to talk about in this matter, and I'm entitled, and my client's entitled to have me confront this witness on what she's going to testify and her methodology. So my point is, Your Honor, this decision, how do you impeach an expert? That one of the fundamental ways you do it is, and I don't mean to dehumanize her, I won't even use the term downward anymore. She's been deemed unreliable. Attorneys who do experts all the time, that's the verb you use to shortcut it, but I won't use it. I have no intention to dehumanize her. What I intend to do is to impeach her on her reliability. So in conclusion, Your Honor, the Herrera case, she was deemed not reliable. That's competency. You, and any expert that's been deemed that, you get to attack that. If the Commonwealth believes the case is not relevant, if Ms. Hyde believes it's not relevant, let Ms. Hyde defend that on the stand. Let Mr. Brennan make that point on redirect. But I can't have my client's constitutional right to confront her on the very subject matter she's going to testify on by anticipating what I'm going to provide for
He's
cross.
so passionate.
And I respectfully submit, Your Honor, this is basic cross of an expert witness, particularly when their methodology on data forensics has been deemed not reliable by a court. And one part is the location she has in her PowerPoint she's going to testify.
Do you intend to introduce that, Mr. Brennan?
It's not significant locations. There are locations in the database that develop the opinion that the timestamp for 227 is not related to the search. They're conflating the issue. She has not been deemed unreliable. It is the issue of the significant locations by that court that they found insufficient. There's no opinion from a court that she's an unreliable expert. And this is how they're going to distort it. Invoking the Constitution and invoking the client's rights has nothing to do with the analysis. That is a totally separate subject, or an opinion simply wasn't let in a different court out of this jurisdiction. It wasn't this opinion, it wasn't this methodology for the opinions that she's going to offer in this case. And so if you look at the case, it is a totally different related report, different related item. It's as if a reconstruction expert went into a court and attempted to give an opinion about a medical diagnosis, and the court wouldn't allow that medical diagnosis in. In another court, in another jurisdiction, they would not be able to be cross-examined that in some court there was an opinion they offered that was deemed inadmissible, unless they were talking about the very same methodology and the very same point. This has nothing to do with her opinion whatsoever. It's just an attempt to try to endorse the defense's attempt to suggest she's not credible by hiding behind the shield of a different judge and distorting the fact that it's two different methodologies, it's two different issues.
One last word. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. He just said credibility. This isn't a credibility issue. This is a reliability. This is the essence of what experts do. You have to show that your methodology is reliable. It's a red herring to bring up credibility. The court opinion.
And this is the equivalent of a Superior Court opinion, right? It's not an appellate decision.
It is, Your Honor. It is the equivalent. I respectfully don't think that the level of the court is at all relevant. Any court, unless you get it overturned on appeal, then this would be a different matter. But this is a valid case, and even if it wasn't, it shall be in evidence. So there's two issues here, and I think the Commonwealth is conflating that. The question first for the court is this admissible? Can it come into evidence? To me, that's a non-issue. Rule 39 says ipso facto, yes, as long as I've got a certified copy. So it is in evidence. I don't know why we're perseverating respectfully on whether I can question her on something that's going to be in evidence about her. Final point, Mr. Brennan incorrectly says that this wasn't about her. The final sentence.
He's very
the
like
decree,
passionate. Wow.
Section on page 7 says,
They're like,
accordingly,
are we gonna
the
cry?
defendant's motion to exclude expert testimony regarding the significant location data obtained from the forensic cell extraction is granted. She's the only expert, and her name is mentioned throughout this opinion. It's all about Ms. Hyde. And I'll conclude my last point, Your Honor, where I started, and that is Ms. Hyde's methodology with regard to her PowerPoint. You heard Mr. Brennan's answer. He is going to include, he has included in her PowerPoint locations, steps, etc. It's exactly what was at issue here. The 227 timestamp, she has no, and this will be developed further on cross, she has no peer-reviewed article to say that
La
how she is
pasión.
determining that 227 timestamp should not be in the data. She has nothing to support that, just like she had nothing in this case with regard to data forensics. Final point is, if the Commonwealth believes that this is irrelevant to what this guy did, let them come back on redirect on that. I shouldn't, in anticipatory, have my cross-examination struck before I even get to pursue that with the witness. And I believe once I pursue it with the witness, it will become evidently clear that it's a proper basis for cross-examination.
Right,
Oh.
and Mr. Lessie, have you thought about
He's
if
like,
the
and I'm
Commonwealth does
done.
not get into the
Sitting.
227 timestamp, whether you think you're still entitled to
La
do this?
pasión.
Your answer, or Your Honor, my answer is I would be entitled, but I would say this: if they don't get into 227, I won't go after it. I won't pursue it. I won't pursue use of this opinion.
We necessarily would have to on some basis, because in order for the witness to explain to the jury her opinion that Ms. McCabe did not delete any Safari browser searches, she
No,
would have to
Ms.
identify
McCabe
the search,
did delete.
where it is
She lying.
in the databases, and how she can tell, how she knows that it wasn't deleted by a user. The same with the second part of the phone calls.
I believe
But
anything Jen McCabe
if I
says.
could avoid talking about 227, I would, but it is necessary for the basis of her opinion. There's just no way around it. And again, this is something that
Someone tell Jen
after
McCabe I want to box her.
a
Just
defendant
kidding.
expert
Oh my
may or
God.
may not
I don't
testify
condone violence.
could be addressed at that point. There is no burden on the defendant. I'm not being presumptuous, although there was a offer of proof earlier on
Not
similar
being
evidence.
presumptuous.
But not knowing the court's wisdom on whether I'll be entitled to rebuttal, I do not want to lose the opportunity to address points that were made in the opening that have absolutely no basis in fact and have not been proven in any way to this point in the case.
So I asked earlier whether the defense intended to call Mr. Green, and you believe that you do, right?
Your Honor, we have not made a decision on what data forensics expert we're going to call, but if I could just 10 seconds.
Okay, but then answer my question after your 10 seconds.
But I will. Mr. Brennan can't have it both ways.
She's like
He
10
can't say,
seconds. He said
yes,
10
I
seconds.
need to address the 227 timestamp, and then deny me the ability to cross-examine fully on this expert's methodology and to impeach her and to get at her reliability and her competence, which is a key issue of crossing an expert. Her competence has been determined in this decision. And it is her, because it was her report that was the basis for the court to not allow her to testify. They can't have it both ways. You can't say, I need to do it in direct, but no, I want to handcuff the defense on cross-examination. Now to answer your question, Your Honor, we are going to have a witness that is going to address the 227 issue.
Okay.
Whether it's Mr. Green or somebody else, we haven't determined. My point on that, Your Honor, is we shouldn't be limited in our cross-examination of the Commonwealth.
No, I'm just thinking it in terms of whether this might be appropriate for rebuttal. That's.
Yeah. And Your Honor, my point would
Joseph,
be that's
I don't know,
obviously going to be Your Honor's
falling asleep.
decision ultimately. But again,
Oh.
the Commonwealth can't have it both ways. They're the ones who are triggering this issue, and I say triggering in a legal sense. They are
I know,
putting
I
an
was
issue,
saying.
the 227 timestamp with this issue, with
I know.
this witness. If they weren't doing that, I
Jules
wouldn't be
can't
having
hang.
this discussion at all. But
She
they're
can't
putting
hang
in an
tonight.
issue. I have the right respectfully to cross-examine on the issue that they're putting in issue. And they shouldn't get rewarded with sort of having a pre-authorization of rebuttal to deal with it. They should have to meet their burden of rebuttal depending upon when the evidence comes. But I don't believe just because we may call a witness, that should dilute my ability to cross-examine this witness on an issue that.
No, it's late there, I know.
You can see why I wish
Thank
I
you,
had more
Jules, I love
notice
you.
on this, right?
Your Honor, I have no good answer for that.
So I will do what I can in the next half hour. I might need more time on this, frankly,
Oh,
but we'll see. She's here.
Your Honor, may I ask one quick? May I, Mr. Craig?
I just want to know, is she here?
La Pasión, poor Jane.
Can she stay another day? if need be?
Niño, La
I think she'll do
Pasión.
what the court directs her to do.
Say it with me.
She would
La
have to leave
Pasión.
by Friday. She cannot be here. Well, may I approach?
Yeah, why don't you come up?
Oh. So I was saying, like, why can't you stay up with me? Like me, huh? Oh. The shade. Fast forward. Bev, I'm sick of your shit, Bev. But let me fast forward a little bit. Oh no. Oh my god, you guys know who's next? I'm dying. Oh my god. You know. And I'm not complaining. You know what? I'm usually not on this late when I have to get up super early. But I was like, you know what? Oh, I got a little story too. I'm gonna start doing TikToks. We're going over there and we're gonna be like more like pasión over there and like more tea and like lifestyle and like period. So I want to talk some shit, but I'm not gonna talk some shit right now. But make sure you follow. Wait, I got distracted. Oh my god. I don't know. I'm saying something about La Pasión. Yeah, follow me on TikTok. What's your TikTok? I'll drop the link. I'm warning you though. Don't come back to me and be like, oh my god, Melly is too much. She's crazy. I can't do it. She's too much. Don't come back and say shit like that because I'm warning you. Like, she drinks all the time and like, you know. Oh my god. We're gonna talk some shit over there though. Okay, let me drop the link. La Pasión.
Put it back in session.
I'm gonna make an
Jules,
emoji
I
about that.
appreciate your patience.
I'm
So
calling it
your
that.
next
Courtney,
witness, Mr. Brennan?
you better go on there and watch
The
me,
Commonwealth
Courtney.
calls Jessica Hyde.
Good night, Miss P. Thank you for being here. Courtney, suck it up and come watch me on there. That's upsetting. Wow. I don't do TikTok either, but I'm gonna go over there because I heard you could get a little funky over there. Cause I just mean it's a little bit more different over there. What is going on? I don't want to look at Bev. Oh, okay. This is who I was going to tell you guys.
What does
I'll say your girl. I'll say.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're
Come
ready.
get your
Thank
girl.
you.
Come get your girl right
Good
now.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record?
What do
My
you
name is
mean?
Jessica Hyde, Jessica space
Who?
HYDE.
What do you do for a
When
living?
was I doing that?
I'm a digital forensics examiner. I'm also an associate. I'm also an adjunct professor at George Mason University, where I teach mobile device forensics in their graduate program. I also own a digital forensics company that does training, services, and research.
In addition to teaching at Georgetown
Okay,
University, do you
forging.
teach in other ways?
It's not that serious.
Correction, I teach at George Mason
Wow,
University,
I'm
not
sorry.
Georgetown. But thank you. I also teach, my company writes and develops training courses. I teach a mobile
I think
forensic
this is
analysis
the
course
perfect person
and a
for
data structures
forging
course
on the
there
screen.
to law enforcement, civilians, et cetera.
Do you engage in any other type of academics or research?
I do. I do other research as part of some volunteer activities I do in the digital forensics field. So I'm the chair of DFIR Review, which is a body that reviews practitioner-created research so that it can go through peer review. I often do reviews as a member of a reviewer for Forensic Science International Digital Investigations Journal, which I was a previous associate editor of.
What does peer
Oh, I'm so sorry.
What does peer review
Is she okay?
Peer review means that when a study is done or a research paper is done on
She's
a
like, oh my God,
topic,
Karen Reed is
that
right there.
an assessment is done of
She
it.
hit him with the
There
car.
are 3 types of assessments that can be done. One is a methodological assessment, where you read through the methodology of the academic or practitioner-created paper and state if it is acceptable or not. The second is you conduct your own testing using the same methodology to conduct a peer review with your own generated data sets. And the third is if the original author has shared their data sets, reviewing their data sets and checking that against their work.
Has any of your work been peer reviewed in the past?
I've had 2 peer-reviewed journals. I've had an article that was peer-reviewed and published in Forensic Science International Digital Investigations regarding the standardization of file classification of recovered items. The layman's term of that would be talking about what deleted means. And then I have another paper that's been accepted that I was a co-author
Like
on in terms
deleted
of
house one
timelines and correlations of forensic evidence.
You mentioned you work in forensic data analysis. Generally, what does that mean?
It means that I look at evidence of digital forensics devices, be them mobile phones, computers, Internet of Things devices, and do analysis to provide meaning and context to the data that's recovered from them, as well as performing data recovery of those same computer-related devices.
Did you have any specific education or training to learn about forensic data?
Absolutely. I have professional training both from courses I've taken as well as I have a master's in digital forensics from George Mason University. A master's degree in that. I've taken multiple courses, advanced mobile analysis, iOS forensics courses from SANS, computer forensics courses from SANS. I have multiple certifications. I hold the GIAC GCFE, which is the GIAC Certified Forensics Examiner. I also hold the NWC 3CFE, which is a Certified Forensics Examiner.
Do you, through your company, teach other forensic examiners how to study forensic data?
Correct. I teach government agencies, both federal and state and local, how to do digital forensic analysis, as well as private sector digital forensics examiners.
How do you teach private digital forensic examiners? What's the method?
I've developed an online virtual course that we teach virtual live, so I'm always there when I'm teaching, but I also have a team of instructors. So for example, the mobile forensic analysis course I developed right now this week is being taught to the police department in Texas right this moment.
Forensic data analysis seems like a broad field. Is there certain parts that you focus in?
I personally specialize in mobile phones and Internet of Things devices.
I want you to just give us some very basic, very general and brief background. When you're looking at a forensic device and you're analyzing it, do you rely on any tools?
I do.
That is a really interesting question. Reliance on tools is not precisely what we do. We utilize tools to extract data from a device, and then we utilize a variety of tools to attempt to parse results from those devices. But the forensics examiner has to take the additional step to both understand, validate, and provide meaning to those results.
Is there any shortcomings or dangers in simply relying on a forensic tool for a result or an opinion?
There is absolutely a danger in just relying on parsed results. When an algorithm is used to determine what data is stored as, it doesn't tell you what that data means, and that's where you need a forensics examiner. Tools don't necessarily understand how the data got there and what causes the data to exist, and that takes deeper and further human analysis, as well as, if you think about it, if on your phone you can go to the Google Play Store or the App Store and you can actually download millions of apps. There's like 6 million apps between the two stores. Digital forensics tools maybe support generously 1,000 applications. So in order to be able to parse and understand the data from applications that the tools don't know how to support, you need a forensics examiner who knows how to dig into that data, conduct testing, and determine the meaning of the data.
Were you asked by the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office to look at and analyze a phone that was related to a person by the name of Jennifer McCabe?
Yes, with a very, very specific scope to a specific date range.
Were you asked during that scope and date range to analyze it and provide an opinion about whether there were any user-initiated deletions of any web searches or Safari-type searches?
Yes, I was asked to look for deletions of Safari searches within the scope of the time frame that was dictated by the purpose of the exam.
Were you asked to look at the phone device and determine whether or not there were any user-initiated deletions of phone calls on the device?
Yes, I was asked to look for deletions of phone calls in that same date range.
And did you do both of those tasks?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you ultimately have opinions on both of those issues?
I do have opinions on both of those issues. That's correct.
And in engaging in the efforts to answer those two questions,
Tell
did
us
you
beside
necessarily
what you
have
got.
to review and analyze a web history that included searches on January 29th, 2022 at 2:27 a.m.?
I did analyze web searches that occurred at 2:29 a.m. on local time here in Norfolk on January 29th, 2022 from the device I was provided. Yes, not the device, a forensic image for clarity.
So before we get to the two opinions that you were asked to consider or what your opinions were after analyzing the data, I want to begin by giving the background and having you share with us your analysis and your observations and opinions about the search on Safari relative to this 2:27 time frame. Before we begin that, let me just ask you one question. Did you do anything to ensure the integrity of the data that you were
There
looking at?
she is.
Upon receiving the forensic image, the first thing I did was I did what's called a hash of the image. So a hash is an algorithmic representation of a file. So a forensic image, all the data from the phone, it comes in one file that can then be extracted and have the rest of the data. That singular file that's received, there's actually 3, but focusing on the one that has all of the data, that archive file, you can run what's called a hash algorithm against it. There's actually multiple hash algorithms, and I hashed it, and then I validated that hash to the document that was provided along with the image file that contained the hashes that were contained in. Those hash values matched. Now, just for clarity, if you change one bit in a file, it will not have the same hash. So the hash provides integrity, and having used both hashes, which are available in that report, and ran 2 different algorithms, they both matched. Additionally, I reviewed the PDF that was received for signs of alteration. The PDF that comes with a Gray Key report is not signed by Adobe Acrobat. However, I was able to take that PDF and then examine it just like I would a phone. So I'm using the same techniques on the phone. Using a tool called EXIF tool, I was able to learn a lot about the creation of that particular PDF. And what I was able to learn about it was that it was created by, it's labeled it as being produced by Grayshift using a particular code-based application to create the PDF called PYF PDF, standing for Python Framework PDF. It is on, it's a program that you can download,
jury's like,
and developers who create tools like Magnet Forensics, who owns a Gray Key, utilize that script, which is why it says it's produced by it, to create the actual PDF. That's what the evidence there in the data tells me. It also contains a time of when that is created.
Because
and that time
the man
was,
passed out on the snow.
I'm sorry, February 2nd.
No one knows who did it.
2022 at global UTC, that's the global constant time, think what's in the UK, at 22:49,
Okay, let me see. We might have to fast
which
forward through.
local time would be 5:49 p.m. So that says that it was created approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes after the document said the image started, and it correlated with the document information. So that provided some level of certainty that that document was factual. And on top of that, I further opened the file of that PDF in what's called a hex editor, which lets me see like every byte, every 1 and 0. And from doing that, I looked for tag markers that are made sometimes in some modifications of PDFs called XMPs, which is Adobe's format of markup. And I did not find any evidence of those tags.
When you're trying to determine whether there's integrity in the data, are you able to tell whether or not there's been any alterations or tampering before the item is put on the Gray Key machine to make the extraction?
That would be when you're talking about if the physical device had been manipulated, is that correct?
Yes.
I cannot tell if the physical device has been manipulated prior to it being imaged. I can only validate if the image was correct. In theory, all of the data of anything that you did on that device would still show in the evidence of device logs and whatever locations that were touched or communicated with. But at that point, it's the same as any user interacting with the device itself.
After the phone's extracted or at the time it's extracted, does it have the history of the device on that extraction?
Could you rephrase?
Yes. At the time the phone is extracted and the copy is made in the PDF and the digital copy, does the digital copy and the PDF contain the history of searches and calls and other items on that phone?
The forensic image itself contains a variety of different artifacts or traces that are left behind by activities that a user does on a phone. Yes.
When you use the term artifact, what does that mean in a basic sense?
An artifact is any type of evidence that is left behind on your phone of an action. So, for example, if you receive a call, there are multiple places in the phone that show that a call was received. That can be in the call log, that could be in a notification, that could be in a unified log that tracks the activity that the phone's doing. There's multiple locations, and each one of those residue of the fact that came in, that's what I would refer to as an artifact. So you could have an artifact not just about a call, about a web search, about taking a photo. Any action you take on your phone may create an artifact.
And before we get into those two questions about any alleged deletions from Safari, a Google search or an internet search, and any alleged deletions of phone calls, I want to start with
Dodge doesn't want to date
your
Miss Hyde and
explanation or
Joel.
your sharing how the timestamp works relative to that search beginning at 2:27 a.m. on January 29th, 2022.
So for clarity, there's more than one search that happens actually at 2:27. There is some activity that's looking at, and I don't want to mispronounce the name of the town. I'll try Hockomock. sports, looking at activities for the sporting events at that school system, I assume, or county location. There is a timestamp for the search Long to Die in Cold. However, that timestamp isn't about active searches. It's about the time that a tab was either opened or moved to the background. So Long to Die in Cold is the most current search in the tab that you opened at that was opened at 2:27. So if you're using your phone and you go to your browser, you have some choices. You can just open an existing tab, or you can open a new tab.
Whatever
A
she's
new
saying.
tab was opened at 2:27 a.m. and that search was done there. Another tab, actually at 2:27, was moved to the background, and its last search at the time it was moved to the background was for, I believe it's Raining Men, the YouTube video. So those two searches both exist as what's called browser state.
Wait, is that what she was
searches,
looking up?
But that's browser state isn't about the time that it was searched. It's about the time that the browser tab that you opened either went to the background, or if it's never been moved to the background, the current search. So the time in the instance of the It's Raining Men video is the time that that video was moved to the background and the new tab took over as the tab that's active. And that tab, the last search done in that tab is Long to Die in the Cold, because that database holds the current search. It constantly gets updated. And
I have 4,000 tabs open. Good luck, dude.
If it's the first time it's opened, or moved to the background.
You guys
if it's an
want to know what's on
existing
my
tab.
tabs?
Did you put together an exhibit that would help explain some of the different
I did put it together an
Not
exhibit
gonna
that would
tell
show
you.
that.
May I approach?
Nope.
Yes.
Sucks for you. It's Raining tab. Whoa. Don't be mad. Man, if you really want to know.
I do. This is table 1 from the first report I created on this case on the phone that I was told was for Jen McCabe.
Is that that will help you explain
It will.
and move this to evidence?
Who you approach, John? Or a bit of Jack if you want.
Well, no.
I love when they all approach, but not because they take forever. Okay, let's see. Oh, dang, your girl goes on for a minute.
On that date, be able to determine that Safari was the application that was being used as the Google browser. And then you would begin looking at the artifacts for Safari, both those that are parsed by the forensics tools, but then further looking into the data structures that hold that data itself, and then ultimately conducting testing.
This is
to
your
determine
girl.
why a certain
This is your girl. Okay.
artifact exists.
BRB, I need to get my pen.
The beginning step is the
Don't
forensic tool or tools.
Even
Did you use
breathe. Don't
forensic
move. You know the
tools
rules.
to
Don't
get
move a
information
bone.
or parse
Don't
any
move a
data
muscle.
regarding
Don't move
this potential
a
search
cell.
227?
Yes,
Don't
I
move
use
your
multiple
tissues.
forensics
Don't move
tools.
a
Can you
vein.
share with us the multiple forensic tools that you
stay.
used?
Absolutely. I used Celebrate Physical Analyzer. I used Magnet Axiom. I used just the tools I used at first. I used iLeap. There are further tools I used later, but those were the 3 that I started with.
What tools did you use later?
Later, I used specifically, I've used Sanderson's Forensics Toolkit, the forensics browser in Sanderson's Forensics Toolkit, which helps exploit SQLite databases. And then I further reviewed in a tool called Rabbit Hole.
To begin with, Celebrate, is that a tool that you're familiar with?
Yes.
Is it a commonly used tool in the industry?
Yes, commonly used mobile forensics tool.
Is it reputable?
Highly reputable.
Why did you use Celebrate?
I use Celebrate because on any mobile exam, I'm going to validate what is captured by Celebrate and Magnet Axiom because they have the most robust parsing of what is in my tool arsenal. And then I would also follow up with iLeap closely behind because iLeap has a lot of artifacts that aren't supported by either of those tools. Using a variety of tools is going to give you different coverage, and each tool has a different perspective on how they view and display data.
You said you also use Magnet Axiom.
That is correct.
Is that a leading forensic tool as well?
Yes, that is also a leading forensics tool.
Are you familiar with that company?
I'm very familiar with Magnet Forensics. I was actually their director of forensics for 5 years, then continued to consult for them for an additional 2 years under my company Exordia, and my company continues to be a reseller of Magnet's products.
You mentioned different tools may present information a different way. Do those tools change the underlying data at all?
That's a great question. So when we're talking about
She's
the
not gonna do
results that a tool shows, the
Jules loves
tools
you.
maintain the integrity of that original forensic image. And that's actually something we verify as we continue through our exams to make sure that the underlying data hasn't been changed. There are some tools, I did use some other tools, I apologize. I also used Artex and Mushy. But I'm sorry, Artex is capital A, lowercase rt, capital E, lowercase x, and then Mushy is M-U-S-H-Y. You're welcome.
Oh,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I got the spelling threw me off.
I mentioned, or I asked you about using multiple tools and whether or not the use of different tools changes the actual underlying data.
So the actual underlying data is always maintained, and we do validate that. Some tools allow you to see parsed results and then allow you to dig deeper into looking at the actual files and data structures. Those would be tools like Celebrate, Physical Analyzer, and Magnet Axiom. Some tools show you the parsed results and tell you where they got them, like iLeap. It shows you the parsed results and tells you the file location, and then you would open that up in an external tool. And then some of the tools I used are not tools that parse the results, but are tools that allow me to manually look at the data structures. So they directly allow me to look at the data structures. And all of the tools I use in this instance are tools that do not change the underlying data.
Is it important or critical to go beyond the tools presentations and actually analyze the data yourself?
It is absolutely critical. Actually, in the NIST Scientific Foundation's paper from the National Institute of Science and Technology that states the foundations of digital forensic science, it states that it is the examiner's duty to not only verify and validate tool results, but also to provide meaning to forensics parse
okay,
results.
so what is she here
Does
to
software
prove?
update regularly?
Because I'm about to fast
Software
forward through
updates all the
site.
time. Typically, we get an update about once a month, and to be honest, it's not enough to keep up with how many new apps are developed and how many new phones come out and how many of your applications get updates, new features, for example, maybe in Instagram or Facebook. So the tools update very, very regularly.
When you use the Celebrate tool to analyze the 227 search, did the search "How Long to Die in the Cold" have a timestamp on it?
There are actually multiple artifacts for How Long to Die in Cold. Remember earlier we defined an artifact and we spoke about it was one of the types of traces. So there are multiple traces for that How Long to Die in Cold. Only one of them is associated with the 227 timestamp, but there are other instances of evidence of that was parsed by Celebrate.
Is there any danger for an untrained eye to rely simply on the software when looking at a search like this, "How Long to Die in the Cold," and seeing the 227 timestamp?
Absolutely. There's a really scary danger that an examiner who has not dug into the artifact and tested to see what it means may assume erroneously that 227 timestamp is the time that what is there is searched. The search in that field of that artifact is going to always be the most recent search in the tab, but that timestamp actually means either the time that that tab was backgrounded, or if it's the first time the tab's been opened, when it was opened. So you could erroneously implicate a search was done hours or some time period or even days before it actually occurred. Some of us leave our tabs open forever.
In your teaching,
Wait. I want to know. I want to know.
examiners and students, do you teach
I want to
about
know.
this?
Tell me right now. Are you a dirty tab user? Do you leave your tabs open? What's on your tabs? How many tabs do you have open? I need to know. Tell me now.
Specific concern and concept.
And don't lie.
Yes, I teach about this concern both in my mobile forensic analysis
Should we
class,
fast forward through
my
Ms.
mobile
Hine?
forensics course
How
that I teach at
shameful,
George
Fran.
Mason University and their digital forensics master's program,
So sad.
and in the data structures course where we specifically learn how to analyze these databases in question.
In your experience, how common does an untrained examiner make this mistake?
I wouldn't be able to speak to how common an untrained examiner does it,
Nope,
but
close them all
regularly
out.
my students get those questions wrong on earlier examples I give them in class to kind of indicate to them that they could easily make mistakes without understanding meaning, and I use it as a teaching aid. So teaching, 90, 100 easy students a year, I regularly see that in untrained examiners that I'm teaching in my class, but I wouldn't be able to say that across the discipline.
You mentioned that Celebrite showed the search on the report as How's Long to Die in the Cold with a timestamp of 227. Is it 227:40?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know whether or not Celebrite has updated its software?
In May, Celebrate of last year, Celebrate made an update to their software actually to remove this artifact because of its ambiguity and the risk that an examiner
I'm kind of
may
over Ms. Hyde.
overstate or misstate what it is.
Is this ambiguity reflected
We're going to have
in
to
other
fast
types
forward
of
to her. Are
software?
you guys okay with that?
Could you rephrase, please?
Sure. For example, when you did a report in Axiom, did it have similar reflection in the report?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently.
Did you run a report regarding this time frame through Axiom software?
I did process the image through Axiom, yes.
When you did that, was it the same or a different result?
Axiom and Celebrate really
Guys, better
show
not all
their
go to
data
sleep on
very,
me.
very differently.
I'm not
So-
ready to go to bed. Better stay up.
Celebrate takes a perspective of alerting people
Wake your ass
to possible deletions by annotating
Before I
either
come there
a
and wake
question
you
mark
up.
or a red X
You hear
next
me?
to artifacts that come from different areas.
Fast
Magnet
forward. Yes, please.
instead marks if the artifact was
No, I
parsed
see you.
or carved.
Okay.
I feel like now I need to explain to you parsed or carved.
Okay, she
parsed
goes on for the
means
rest
that
of the day.
data was where it was expected to be found, and
She goes on the rest of the day. That's how much she has to say about what's on your tabs. Yeah, that's not good, y'all. That's not good. Just said I. Oh no, my light's in the back. I must have rest of the day. You know what I mean, Austin. It's nighttime now. But okay, so should we not fast forward or should we fast forward? Why are you playing me like that? Okay, because if we're gonna fast forward, it's the next day. Yeah, she goes on the rest of the time. She goes on the next like 3 hours. I'm not even kidding. It's at 3:24 right now, and she goes on until the end of the day. Yo. It's up to you. Oh, F Troopin, you remember now. Let's fast forward. Okay. I'm down, I'm down. I'm down to move on. Let me see who's on day 12. We're going to play day 12, but I want to see who is going to testify. I'm up to stay for a little bit longer. I'm going to have another drink, and then you guys can go to bed. I'm gonna tuck you guys in. Okay, I'm gonna pull up day 12. So we've had enough of Miss Hyde. I'm so sorry. Wait, what if we miss something important though? Hold on, I'm Googling. I think we'll be okay. I'm reading to see if we missed anything important, she said. But the phone, okay. She establishes that the phone doesn't move between 12:32 and 6:04. That's what she establishes, according to online. Wait, yeah, I don't want to miss the cross. I don't want to miss the cross. So I'm going to fast forward until we get to the cross. I'm always down to hear the cross because we love. Okay, here we go. Wait, is that the cross? Because we love Alan Jackson. We need Laura's notes. We do. Go next person. Look at you guys bossing me around. I don't want to listen to Miss Hyde anymore either, but I do want to watch Cross. And I'm going to get another Modelo, and then that's it. The freaks come out at night. The freaks. Oh, wait. Wait. Can you guys even... Oh, my God, I cut her off.
I believe it's May. I don't.
The whole time you guys were just watching.
May 2023, obviously. Yep. Then I.
Wait, can you guys hear it? Wait. The whole time you guys were just watching me? I thought it was on the screen, and then I looked, and I'm like, wait, I don't know. You can hear, you can see. I only saw myself on there. Wait, what are you guys saying no to? Oh my God. Okay, let me just go back a little bit. You guys can see it? I thought you were checking in. It was just you. No. I had the whole, I thought the thing was playing. And I was like, la. And then I realized you guys were just looking at me.
Regarding the phone that was identified as Miss McCabe's.
No, we couldn't hear.
And then I have the fourth one, which is
I'm not even drunk either. Let me get another beer.
And then I do have the opinion from
Who's coming
State
for me?
versus Herrera, but if we don't need that, that's fine.
Okay.
Someone's
very well.
coming
I
for me?
appreciate you telling me that. In March, and you recall on your direct examination, Attorney Brennan asked you questions going to your experience and qualifications. Do you
Okay, let me get
recall
another
those
Modelo.
questions?
This is it for the night after this Modelo.
You were involved in
then I'll fast forward when I come
actually a murder trial in the state of Maryland in a case called State v. Herrera as recently as March of 2025, correct?
Correction, it's an attempted murder.
Attempted murder. And in that particular case, you had attempted to offer various opinions to the court, correct?
I object.
You have to move along from this case, from what you're talking about. You have to move along from that Maryland case.
So with regard, do you recall another case from the state of Massachusetts, Arrington case, in which you submitted a pro se amicus? Do you recall that case?
I do.
And is it correct that in that case you submitted arguments on behalf of the prosecution in that case?
I submitted an amicus brief, which is not on behalf of anybody. It's as a friend of the court.
Right, but the Friends of the Court, you took a position in that, quote, Friends of the Court brief, correct?
Took a position on the evidence.
Right, and the position you took on the evidence was that the frequent location history data is reliable and should be used. Is that correct?
The statement is that I do not have that amicus in front of me. It has been a year and a half since I've read it. But that amicus does discuss frequent location history records. And I want to be clear, it speaks to both bias on both sides and negative and positive of submitting it. It was an unbiased writing, and it was not specifically in support of the prosecution.
So you are testifying in this case on behalf of the prosecution, correct?
In this case, I was hired by the prosecution.
Right.
That's correct.
And the prosecution is paying you for your services in this case, is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to this case, you have been paid and have been on this case since May of 2023, correct?
That is correct.
With regard to the various reports that you have submitted in this case, you have mentioned one, which is a report with regard to the iPhone of John O'Keefe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you have, in that report, you have
Is this the cross?
made a statement, have you not, that from 12:20:50 a.m. on January 29th of 2022 and after, there is no indication of interaction with the device. Is that correct?
There is no indication of user interaction with the device. There is all received until about 6:04 a.m. when there is again Apple Health data that picks up.
I'll ask it again. And you can feel free to turn to page 1529 in that report.
Page 15?
Page 1529.
The report is.
Would you like the
50
page
pages.
of the report or the page NDA number at the bottom?
Whoa.
Do either way.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying page 15 in the report.
No. It's NDAO 1529 or page
Everyone
7, whatever.
settle
it is.
down.
7. Okay, Roger.
Okay, so page 7, you see there's a heading interactive phone activity, correct?
Yes.
And at the top it says, using a variety of different artifacts, we can see active interaction with the mobile device up until 12:20.
Yeah, you have to
Slow down. Okay, sorry about that. I'm just trying to move it along, but I will be slower. I'll repeat, using a variety of different artifacts, we can see active interaction with the mobile device up until 12:20:50 a.m. ET. You see that statement?
Yes.
And then if you skip down, I'm going to skip a couple sentences to the paragraph under the chart. And this is the key part.
Okay.
Says,
Yeah, Joel, I was
from
saying you
that
better not go to
point,
sleep
and
until
I'm
I go to
understanding
sleep.
that point to be the 12:20:50 a.m., correct? You need to say yes or no. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You can't
There
say
is no
in the court. You have to say
indication
yes
of
or no.
interaction with the device.
See?
Did I read that correctly?
No.
That is correct.
So
La pasión. It's going to be like
I
a new
am
term
going
here.
to,
La pasión.
and you believe that statement is correct?
Until 6 something a.m.
No, I'm sorry.
gonna
I'm
make
just
an emoji.
asking if that statement is correct. Not if you have other information, but is that statement correct?
I know. I'm just telling you.
Can you answer that? Rizai, can you answer
Okay.
that, yes or no?
Did I read that?
You want to know something?
You read it correctly.
Thank
yes.
you. If we
You want to
could
know what
direct-
like a pet peeve of mine is Deb. I mean, not Deb. Bev. I always get her confused with Deb. Auntie Deb. If you know, you know. Bev, when she says, "Can you answer that?" And I'm like, they have a mouth. Yes, they can answer that. Whatever her name is, Deb, Bev. What is her name? Actually, I'm just kidding. No, Bev.
Honor,
Whatever.
have a document that is put up
Don't come
already
for
in
me.
evidence
Do
and
not
publish Exhibit 39.
Do not.
And it will be, thank you.
Come.
And if we could go to slide 82, please.
My guess was going to be what
And
I broke up with
Ms.
those
Hyde, if I could
buzzballs. I
draw
was like,
your attention
bye.
to the entry that
Forgot
is,
about you.
it says
Like I never had you.
3209 under app lock, but we know that the 00 is a 12.
I might.
So it's
I might go back to them. I might go back
12:32:09
to those
a.m.
ones.
on January 29, 2022. And
Yeah.
I'm going to read what it says in red, and this is a timeline of Mr. Whiffen. You know Mr. Whiffen?
I do know Mr. Whiffen.
And so he put in red, not us, he said device locked with lock button for the last time. Do you see that?
I do.
And you know that to lock a phone, you actually have to hit the side button with regard to an iPhone to make it lock. Do you know that?
Do you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that is an interaction with a phone, is it not?
I concur.
So that
I
means
concur.
that interaction with the phone occurred at 12:32:09, correct?
I did not review that specific artifact. I cannot attest to Mr.
Lord.
Whiffen's exam, only to my own.
So
Here we go.
do you have any reason to believe that what
Here.
is in evidence in this
yeah.
case that Mr. Whiffen has produced, and that do you have any basis to contest the fact that the device was locked with a lock button for the last time on the phone of John O'Keefe at 12:32:09 as you sit here?
I cannot contest it because I do not recall looking at that specific artifact.
Don't you think it would have been appropriate to be accurate as a digital forensic
That
analyzer
sucks.
on the topic of the last
Wait, why is Jules
an
mad?
indication of interaction with the device?
Jules, get your
Don't you
ass
think it
back
would have
in
been
here.
appropriate to look at that
Hi, Corey.
12:32:09 in any of the tools you said you used on direct?
What's up, Corey? Thanks for being here.
I did not correlate that artifact in my timeline.
I understand you didn't, and my question is, you make a statement. Well, let me back up. Do you understand that in this case, as in many cases, that matters of seconds in activity can be determinative of a case? Do you understand that from your experience?
Absolutely.
So it's important, therefore, to get activity right for any data forensic examiner when they're issuing reports about activity, particularly of a decedent. Is that important?
Absolutely.
So isn't it correct that the statement that you make
Just hanging out.
on page 7 of your report, that from that point, 12/20/50, there is no indication of interaction with the device, is incorrect?
I cannot make that without going back and reviewing and validating the artifact
same.
just produced.
Come get
from
your
the
girl.
And I would need to validate that in order to respond to that.
But as you sit here, you have no basis to
Why is Miss Hyde giving
contest
us
what
attitude?
Mr. Whiffen has stated, that there was a lock button on the side of the phone of Mr. O'Keefe a full 12 minutes after you say there was no interaction with the device. Is that correct?
I don't. I would
Yes,
have
it
to
is a
review that
retro.
portion.
No, thank you.
Is there anything that had prevented you from reviewing that
It is kidding
in that data before you wrote this report?
Not that I can think of. I would have to go and re-review that.
My question is,
Do you
I
want to
don't
date
know
Miss
if that
Hyde?
artifact- I have
Or do you
not
want to
reviewed
date
that
Miss
artifact, so I
Melly?
cannot
You
speak
have both of us
to an
on the
artifact
screen.
I have
Really
not
quick.
reviewed, and I
Just
did
curious.
not, that is not my report, that's Mr. Whiffen's report. So I cannot
Curious.
speak to that without going back and reviewing that evidence.
isn't the interaction with the device a lock button
She can say
readily
who?
available to you
Ms.
in the
Hyde?
data that you have and had in your possession when you wrote this report?
Yes.
Thank you.
Who can say? Me?
If you could please turn to, in the same report, page 1528,
I would
which
say
is
Ms.
your
Hyde,
page
'cause
number
she's-
6.
She's like tech smart.
And I just want you, please, to go
Who,
to
Jules or
just
Ms.
put a placeholder in that. And if you can now just go to the conclusion, which is your page 50, 50.
Thank you, Nez. Aaron Reed.
Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
So in the conclusion, you state that starting at 12:01 a.m. on January 29, 2022, the mobile phone was in use with activity of Waze navigating to 34 Fairview Drive, Canton, MA, active interaction with the screen, steps, audio playing text messages and calls until 12:31 a.m. EST on January 29, 2002. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
That statement is also incorrect, isn't it?
On what basis? I
Do you believe that statement is correct or incorrect?
believe that the statement is correct regarding those artifacts that are mentioned in that statement, yes.
Okay, if you could please, if you could turn to page 1535 of the same report.
Can you give me my page number, please?
I will. I'm
Okay,
just,
thank you.
You're welcome. If you could turn to your page 13.
Oh, wow.
13, Roger.
Why is
Yes,
there
I'm
always
there.
sirens going on
And you
here?
see an entry that says 12:31:56, which is the same time in the conclusion, but I'm going to develop it.
I believe I know where you're going.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I need to ask the
apologize.
questions.
Yes.
I appreciate you looking to help, but if I could, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So it's got health steps and it has steps 36, duration 20.9
She's like, I know where you're going with this.
20.398 seconds. Did I read that correctly?
That is absolutely correct.
So if you look at this data point in your report on page 13, the steps began at 12:31:56, but they ended 20.39 seconds later at 12:32:16. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So therefore, your statement in your conclusion, if you could go back to 50, and this is in your conclusion, your statement there is that the steps, the mobile phone is used with activity, including steps, until 12:31 a.m. EST. That should read until 12:32:16, correct?
It depends on your interpretation of interaction. As a user is walking, they're not actively interacting with their device. It's their movement that is. It's not direct interaction with the screen. But I would agree to your view that could be interpreted as needing an additional 20 seconds.
Isn't the more correct way to state the conclusion that the active interaction when it comes to steps is not calibrating using the screen, but the phone is calculating steps taken? Isn't that correct?
That is correct, but that's not interactivity with the device.
I understand,
Yes.
but the sentence reads includes steps, and the more accurate way to have stated that would have been to put 12:32:16 instead of 12:31 a.m., correct?
I'm sorry, you just said 12:30. I did this to the minute, not to the second. Could you rephrase what you were stating?
Well, I'll state it again.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So isn't the more correct way to state this important data point in your conclusion, instead of saying active interaction with the screen and steps, etc., until 12:31 a.m. EST, the 12:31 should be 12:32, because the steps that you have on your page 13, by what you can see, is the duration of 20 would have brought it to 12:32:16, correct?
I would state that depends. I believe either is a correct way to state that. Based on interactivity, based on your interpretation, your definition is more correct.
Okay, thank you. And it's not my interpretation. I'm
Why
reading
is she
from
being
your
like-
report, correct?
Your interpretation that 1232 is a more correct representation of interaction is based on your theory that interaction concludes when the steps end. And I
Listen,
think
Miss Hyde,
both would be
I'm gonna need you
acceptable.
to drink a
Okay,
bug
so
ball,
let's follow up on this.
Sure.
hit the bait.
Isn't it correct that it isn't my theory when the steps ended?
Oh,
Let your hair
it's-
down.
If I could just finish,
There's
I,
some teeth.
because if
Absolutely.
we
Lie.
talk over each other, the stenographer's not going to get both of us. Thank
Agreed.
you. So it's not my theory. It's just the simple math from an entry you've made
This is
on
why I'm
page
single, because
13,
I cannot
that the
have
steps
an
began
argument.
at 12:31:56. They ended
With
20.398 seconds after that, which just doing the simple math is 12:32:16. Did I do the math correctly?
That is correct.
Okay,
I'm not
thank you.
debating that.
Thank you very much. So now what I'd like to do is to go to page 1528 of your report.
Do you have my page number for that? I'm sorry.
Yes, and I appreciate that you go page number, so I center in on the lower one, then I'll go immediately to the one. So it's your page 6, Ms. Hyde.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
If you could please go to Apple Health Data Steps.
Mhm.
And we've been talking about steps because they're important enough that you put them in a report, correct?
That is correct.
So let's go to an important data point,
Yeah, this is
therefore,
wild.
in your report, in the chart, which is the second entry, which is, as you've stated, 12:21:10 a.m. Do you see that?
I do.
And you note under the data that John O'Keefe's phone registered 80 steps at 12:21:10. Did I read that correctly?
steps.
You did read that correctly.
And those 80 steps constituted 191.253 seconds, as you state, correct?
That is what is stored in that database, correct?
And is my math correct, so that the jury understands this perhaps a little better,
Sure.
that 191.253 seconds equals 3.2 minutes,
Approximately, yes.
approximately?
I'm doing the math in my head, so that's why I said approximately.
Understood. So
Why is she getting attitude?
am I
Like,
reading this entry correct?
people get
That you're
defensive.
stating
It's like,
what
chill out,
the
you're in a
data
courtroom.
shows,
That's
that
probably the
80
last thing you
steps
wanna
were
do.
taken by the
Right?
phone of whomever had the phone of Mr. O'Keefe. There were 80 steps taken at 12:21:10 a.m. on January 29, 2022, for a length of time of 3.2 minutes.
That is what the phone registered.
That's what the phone registered. Very well. Now what I'd like to do is to turn to the phone of Jennifer McCabe.
Okay.
And that is,
Here we go.
for your reports, you don't date your reports, so I can't give you a date, but it says.
It's report 3, I believe, is what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Did you say
3.
you don't date your report?
And there is, bear with me, I'm accommodating your page reference, and I'll have it soon for you. It is your page 7. And let me know when you are there.
I am there.
Are you aware of an issue regarding the time of an interactive phone activity on Jennifer McCabe's phone at 5:07 a.m.? Are you aware of that issue, and particularly a communication to a person named
No inch to
Coco?
office dating.
Are you
even with
aware
the
of that?
I would need to check in my report. May I turn to the page for that
Absolutely.
time?
And
I
if
do
it
see
is-
an outgoing call to someone labeled Coco at 5:07:21 a.m.
And you can tell that because in your report on page 11, you list
a 5:07:21 a.m. call to a Coco as outgoing, correct?
Correct.
Have you discussed that call
Yeah.
with any
Airbnb.
member of the Commonwealth?
No.
And again, this call is at 5:07 a.m. on January 29th of 2022, correct?
That is correct.
There is no duration listed for that call. And if you just follow my questions, if you can, yes or no, is that correct? There's no duration yet listed.
Correct.
So what I want to do is to also note that that omission is not the only omission of durations from this report, or I'll state it differently, let me withdraw that. There is no population of the duration column for any call from 12:14:30 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, all the way through this 5:07:21 call, and you don't start listing durations until 8:59:34 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, and explainable. The artifact.
I understand
Yes,
Mr.
okay.
Brennan can
Sure.
handle those on his redirect.
Absolutely.
So there's not a population of duration of calls after numerous early calls and phone, as you call it, interactive phone activity. Nothing populated in this report until 8:59:34. That's correct?
Yes.
All right. Now what
I don't know how
I'd
you feel
like
about
to do
this.
is to turn to the
Meaning,
22740 artifact that was the subject of much
I'll believe you.
discussion on direct. And I am going to refer to
no,
that
but
as
I'm not a
an
big fan.
artifact. Is that a parlance that is familiar to you?
Yes.
And if I refer to that as a timestamp also, is that a parlance that's familiar to you?
Absolutely.
So I can refer to 22740 as a timestamp, and you would find that parlance acceptable.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to do that. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to refer to it as a timestamp. Now, you've been on this case working for the Commonwealth since May of 2023, correct?
May 4th, 2023. That is correct.
So you've been on this case for 2 years, correct?
2 years.
Not actively the entire time.
But you started on this case in May 2023. You issued a report in May
Correct.
of 2023, correct?
Correct.
You issued a report in December of 2024, correct?
Correct. After being rehired in November.
Right. And you
Why is
issued more
she-
reports in 2025, correct?
That is correct.
So all of that activity has been on this case, correct?
All on this case. That
And
is
that's
correct.
been all on behalf of the prosecution, correct?
That is correct.
None of that work has been done on behalf of the defense, correct?
That is correct.
So let us now go to the timestamp of 22740.
Wow.
Your opinions on what is the meaning of that timestamp have varied from May of 2023 until today. Is that correct?
No, that is incorrect.
Let's cover that issue.
Sure.
Let's turn to your May 2023 report.
Ooh, I don't think Miss Hyde looks too good here.
Isn't it correct that the report and your findings were pursuant to a request from Detective Lieutenant
Look at her, and
Brian
she's like,
Cullen?
Correct.
And how
Let's
many
just make
interactions
defensive
have you
now.
had with Lieutenant Detective Brian Tully on this case approximately?
I really don't know. I'd have to go look back at email and call logs.
Is it more than 5?
Yes.
Is it more than 10?
Yes.
Is it more than 20?
I don't know.
So somewhere between 10 and 20, would that be fair?
Again, I'd have to review my call logs. I'm not
But it
going to
was more
test.
than 10.
More than 10, I'm sure.
So the issue was your use of various forensic tools that revealed a timestamp, 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on January 29, 2022. Is that correct? Is that a fair characterization of an issue you looked at?
Correct.
So if you could go to page 5 of that report. And I would ask that you go to the last paragraph that starts with "in the instance of the Google search," and let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
So it reads, "In the instance of the Google search, house
Like,
log
I'm
to
there.
die in cold, that was recovered from the write-ahead log associated with the X browser state DB SQLite database with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. was marked by Celebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted." Did I read that correctly?
Fair. Yes.
So you use the words
Fair.
that
No, it's
Google
yes or
search,
no.
house long to
Dodge
die
was
in
right.
cold,
Yes or no
was
answers, please.
associated with
Why isn't Beth saying
the
anything?
timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m.
Weird.
Isn't that what your words are in this report?
In that database, they are associated. That is correct.
Right.
Beth and this
And-
girl make me want to like.
In terms of page 3, if you could go back, of your report,
But
under
wake
relevant
up. You
findings.
had too many buzz balls.
Mhm.
Why is she trying to be me?
It
Why is
starts
Beth trying to be
with,
me?
There were
With the buzz
2
balls.
searches of interest that took place on the iOS device.
Why?
And we're talking about Jennifer McCabe's device, correct?
The device that was identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's. Yes.
That's identified to you as Jennifer McCabe. And it's what you talked about on direct examination as her device,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
It's not a
I had to
mystery
read
as
that
to whose
line.
it is. It's not like you don't
Well,
know,
you took
right?
my
In
first one,
direct,
then I
I
have to
also
read
use the phrase identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's.
Right, but your conclusion is the device you've been working on
YouTube
and
was like, this
analyzing
bitch
for
is
2 years is the device of Jennifer McCabe.
crazy.
That
They're
is
like,
how it was
cut
identified
Melanie
to
off.
me.
Do you have a different conclusion as to whose
I
device
have-
it is?
I always am very, very careful that I do
They're
not,
like,
I did not assess the ownership.
Cut her off.
That was
Cut
information
that shit off.
that was given to me, not information that I personally assessed.
So are you uncertain as to whether the device you've been working on for 2 years is the phone
The
of Jennifer McCabe?
device that I've been working on for 2 years is the device that was identified to
YouTube was
me
like, nope.
by the
Green.
Massachusetts State Police, Detective Tully, as belonging to Jennifer
I didn't
McCabe
get in trouble, but
when I
they're like,
began working and received that device, as stated in the evidence analyzed section
suck
on
it
this
up,
same
YouTube.
page.
So let's go, and we're talking about, again, to get back to the center of gravity, we're talking about a timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m., correct?
That is correct.
And when you issued your first report in May of 2023, the timestamp you were looking at was
700 times per
2:27:40
second.
a.m.
What
January
are many
29,
of?
correct?
I was looking at multiple timestamps associated with the same 2 searches.
Right. So what I'd like to do, you said multiple timestamps. What
Yeah.
times are in the multiple category?
What I was tasked to do was to look at the times, the search, the Google search history, I'm sorry, not Google search history,
Oh my God.
the Safari history, which includes Google searches, associated with those
feel like
2
it's
search
awkward.
terms
I feel awkward.
within that 12-hour period.
I feel
That
awkward.
was the particular task, not the task of looking at the 227, just for clarity.
Right. And I appreciate that, but my question wasn't that. My question was, I thought I heard you on direct examination, which is why I repeated the question, what I thought I heard on direct, but I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
You looked at and talked about on direct 2 potential times for a Safari search, which includes Google, one of which was 2:27:40 and the other
And we're
one was
gonna get to
6:23 a.m. Is that correct?
I analyzed the meaning of those 2 timestamps.
Right, so we're just
Trying to
talking
get
about 2 times, 2:27:40 and then 6:23, is that correct?
So you are only talking then about the one that we're also talking about 6:24 a.m.
Okay, I'm thinking of doing a Diddy stream live. Are you gonna show up or what? Oh my
These
God,
are
I'm not gonna
fine
do
for
it if you're not gonna
clarity,
show up. Like, what's the point?
Some of these records are in UTC, some are
Whatever.
in local.
Fair enough, so you've got 2:27:40 You've got 623 and you got 624 that you were looking at, correct?
Are you
There
working?
are other timestamps that
What
exist in the
schedule?
realm of what I was looking at, but those ones, correct, are
During
the
the
ones that
day?
are relevant in this report.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
We're
I do
just
it.
talking about this report.
Yes.
And so if you look under
Now?
relevant findings, at the very bottom paragraph,
Right
you
now.
say, second sentence, a Google
Right
search
this second.
for how long to die cold at approximately 11:23
How
a.m.
long to die?
And then how long TIDIE in cold took place at 11:24.
That is in UTC. I apologize for not having the time stamp format there, but that is the UTC time. The UTC
Dude.
time equivalent in Eastern Local Time would be 6:23 and 6:24.
So to be clear, in your report, you wrote 11:23 a.m. and 11:24, and you didn't put UTC next
Correct.
to it,
They
did you?
should, you are correct. That should say UTC. That is a typo.
And there's a significant difference
typo?
between 11:23
And one of the
and
biggest trials
2:27,
ever?
correct?
11:23, is UTC, so its equivalent in Eastern Time would be 6:23. The artifact of 2:27 is already in local time, so that is in Eastern Time. So what we would be comparing is 2:27 and
Okay.
6:23 and 6:24 to be appropriate. They're taking into account the data storage and which ones are in UTC and which ones are in local time.
I understand your explanation
Dude,
now,
how much are
Perfect.
she
but in this report,
tripping?
there is no UTC time down. You have two additional times in addition to the two times, two different numbers added to the two, correct?
The UTC was a typo. It should say UTC next to those, and the chart shows all of those
I
artifacts
just
in
spilled my beer.
EST and is clearly labeled that they're all in EST.
So you would agree
I'm gonna have
that
to go
it's
and
better
fix that.
stated to state it a different way than you have in your report?
I would say that
Well, I thought
both
I did.
are equivalent.
Gotta
I
fix
should
my
have had
imagination.
UTC there.
Drunk.
But yes, it's
No.
easier for the audience to speak in
Thought I did.
EST. I would say forensics examiners typically communicate in UTC, but we translate for our reports. And I should have either communicated that in EST or included UTC. I will definitely contend that.
So
I don't like her negative energy, her negative vibe. I don't like this. Like, what is this? I don't like it.
in terms of your May
The UTC is the type of this should say UTC.
2023 report, your first report in this matter.
Yes.
You, on page 5,
Mhm.
in the sentence underneath the block paragraph, state, in the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold that was recovered from the right-ahead log associated with
How long?
That's correct.
The
the
dying
X
cold.
browser stage with a timestamp of 2027:40 a.m. was marked by Celebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted. Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly.
Now let's move ahead.
I said it earlier. Sorry to interrupt. Rude interruption. Justice for Officer John O'Keefe. Non-existent. I think this whole trial, I know Karen's being set up, corruption, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I do feel it has taken away from why we're here in the first place. Like, how often do you see people say like, can we try, or like justice for officer? No, everything is like all can we, like, can we trial, can we this, can we that, like, really. I'm not trying to be a biatch. I'm just trying to speak the facts. Kill a swag. Am I keeping you up?
Ahead
You just can't get enough of me.
to page 7 of your report,
Mhm.
up at the top above conclusion. Importantly, at this time, you state, testing shows great inconsistency
Mhm.
with timestamps parsed from this file. It is, however, definitive that the page existed in a tab.
Correct.
While a definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listing the time of 2:27:40 is unknown,
Mhm.
the time is inconsistent with the timestamps associated with the same search. Did I read that correctly?
You did read it correctly.
So as of May 2023, you said the definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listed as 2/27/40 is unknown, correct? I'm just asking, is that what you wrote? Unknown.
I believe that the wording here is, sorry. I know I do
What's
use the word
that?
unknown. It says, while a definitive reason as to why the timestamp listing is the time of 02/27/40 is
What?
unknown. Sorry.
So you use the word unknown, your word in your report.
Yes.
Okay, so
What
now
was
what I'd
that?
like to do is
I always
to
want to rewind.
go on
No, that was her.
to,
She tripped out. Wait, let me go back.
Those ones, correct, are the ones that are relevant in this report.
I rewind it.
exactly, and that's what we're talking
Please
about.
be
We're
kind.
talking
Rewind.
about this report.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look under
If you know
relevant
what Blockbuster is, we're gonna make out in the chat.
findings,
You know what Blockbuster
at the
is?
very bottom paragraph,
Many
you
of you
say,
probably don't
second
know about
sentence, a Google
That's cool.
search for how long to die cold at approximately 11:23 a.m. and then how long
Yeah, that was her. It was a
DIE
woman.
in cold took
What the
place
heck?
at 11:24.
That is in UTC. I apologize for not having the timestamp
I'll have
format
to
there, but
rewind
that
it.
is the UTC time. The UTC time
Did I learn
equivalent in Eastern Local Time would be 6:23 and 6:24.
I think we're
So
good.
to be clear, in your report, you wrote 11:23
You don't know what
a.m.
that is.
and 11:24, and you didn't put UTC next to it,
Correct.
did
They
you?
should, you are correct. That should say UTC. That is a typo.
And there's a significant difference
Oh my
between
God, we could watch
11:23 and
Don't
2:27:40,
pissed about
correct?
the typo.
11:23 is UTC, so its equivalent in Eastern Time would be 6:23. The artifact of,
In a proceeding about a year ago under oath.
yes, I do.
We watched. Wait. Okay. I wanted to see.
I am now going to go to that testimony, and if at any point you would like to have a copy of that, if your honor would like, I will do it, but I'm going to start and then we'll see how it goes. So, bear with me a moment. Do you recall in that testimony
That means
stating that you
wait, did I go
processed
too far?
the image in
Oh,
several
I do. I
forensic
think I went too
tools?
far.
I use
Sorry.
Celebrite Physical Analyzer, and then you list many other tools. Do you
Oh.
remember giving that testimony?
We have a page.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, I thought I'd given it 1-12. My apologies if I didn't. It's June 14, 2024, page 1-12.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, do you recall giving testimony about the various tools you use for this timestamp?
I do.
And do you recall stating that those tools were commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard? Do you recall that?
I'd have to see the wording that I used at that exact time.
Would it be helpful to refresh your recollection if I showed you that?
It would be great. I would greatly appreciate that because I do not recall the precise wording, but I
Oh,
know that I
geez.
spoke to the
Fair enough. I'll
tools
get
I
that for
used.
you.
That is so over
May I
this.
approach, Your Honor?
She's like,
Yes, Mr. Lessie, you
I just
offered
want
a
to retire.
transcript. Do you have the whole
I have a
transcript?
whole transcript if that helps.
It might speed things along.
Agreed.
Okay.
We have one else provided to the side.
someone like email Deb, whatever her name is. Tell her like just come chill out with Melly, have a buzz ball, take the edge off. Like you got something stuck way up.
I'm going to give you a transcript.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
that's what I
appreciate
meant. She has something up her ass, is what I mean.
So, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
112.
Figurative speech, if you may.
going to be 112.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. You're welcome.
Language, young
Thank you
lady.
so much.
Ooh,
You said we're on 112?
Yes, please.
I'm in trouble.
113, I see it. I see it's highlighted on the copy, so I
Right,
figured
so
that's the
what I
one.
wanted to do, the reason I said 112 is that's where I
Oh,
started with my
sorry.
previous question. So I'm not going to repeat the question, but just to
I think
orient
I'd
you,
like to be in trouble,
so
Jeff.
you have a fair context for the questioning.
Fair.
So I started at the bottom,
Same.
112, now I'm moving to
Are we done with your girl or
113,
no?
and I'm starting with line 7. Do you see that?
I do.
And it says, yes, they are commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard for other forensic examiners to use on mobile
Wait.
exploitation. Did I read
Maybe
that correctly?
Spanish.
That is correct.
I'm talking
And then if
Spanish.
you go down to line 22, you testified in that proceeding. So it's important to use multiple tools so you can see the results from different data sets, and be able to compare those results and enhance those with manual analysis. Did I read that correctly?
You did, that's correct.
And then going up to page 114, line 5,
Slow down a little bit, Mr. Ellis.
I will, Your
Oh my
Honor,
God.
thank you. Yeah,
How many times
That's
does she have to
very,
come?
very
Ooh, that's
typical for me to process with
Oh.
multiple tools to ensure that I'm getting the most complete
Why does that have
interpretation
to
from
always tell him
forensic tools.
slow down?
Of course, you go beyond that with your analysis,
Shut up.
but it's absolutely pertinent to that.
That's all I have to say.
Did I read that correctly?
Really
That
all I
is
have-
correct.
And then lastly, for this section at page 114, 17, the Sanderson tool is meant to look at specific type of data structures called the SQLite database. XQLite databases are very nuanced, and this particular tool allows you to take that database and explore it at a deeper level than the other forensic tools allow. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Now if we can go to page 124
Why
of
is
the
she doing
very
that?
same testimony. And feel free to go back a page just so you can see to page 123 that the topic is the 2/27/40 timestamp associated with how long to die in cold. Do you
Can I
see-
have a moment just to review and get context?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Page 123.
Why do
13,
you
but
need
if
to
go
review
back
and get
further, feel
context
free.
if it's the truth? I never understood that part. Like, you don't remember? You're gonna
Okay, I'm
testify.
good. Thank
You
you.
know what's
You're
going
welcome.
on.
So what I want to do is
I've
start
been
with
in
page
lawsuits,
1-23,
like, you know
and
what's
this
going
is
on.
your testimony. On line 16,
Write that
Mhm.
shit down.
I have them
Fine.
in the
I don't know.
timestamp order that is associated with the artifact. You use that word associated again, correct? Did I read that
Correct.
correctly?
Yes.
And that's associated with the Google search, how long to die in cold, in a 2/27/40 a.m. timestamp, correct?
That is correct.
Now, if you turn the page of the testimony,
Yeah, Shabusiness does not like it up there. Shabusiness is like
you
jealous.
state
I can't like.
back then
Bolitas,
that
you missed so
on
much.
page 124,
I'm
line
shaking
1,
my
the
ass.
browser state DB is an
Doing all
artifact that
kinds of
speaks to
things.
when tabs are moved. So when you're using your browser and you open different tabs, you may have a search that this time pertains to the time that the tab moved. It could be lots of things. Did I read
Correct.
that correctly?
You did.
Why do I feel like they're having like
Not
an
one thing, you
argument?
said it could be lots of things,
Like a
correct?
That is
relationship
correct.
argument.
And then you go on in line 10, and you talk more, and then you go down to the bottom.
And you talk
You go
more.
down to line 20, and you testified, we
Definitely
cannot
not
tell
this time.
by this particular artifact what time that search occurred. Did I read
Absolutely.
that correctly?
It's specifically pertaining to that particular artifact that give in browser state DB that does not tell us what time a search occurred. That is correct.
Right. So you stated, and it was your statement then, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred, correct?
That particular artifact.
Okay, so now let's
Why is she
keep
getting all
going.
upset?
Mhm.
No, it's good.
If you go to page 129 of this transcript,
I'm there.
Who's coughing like that?
at the top,
They need some
Sure.
honey
line
tea
1,
or a cola.
227 isn't necessarily
Ooh, I
one
was-
time when the tab was closed. That's in my report. I say it's undetermined. Remember,
I do,
we were
that's
just
in my
reading your
favorite part.
undetermined
Absolutely.
in
Well, I
your
don't
May
even like
23
candy, but-
report?
Correct.
Because there's a lot of things that can cause that time stamp to be there, including tab being moved,
I like how
tab
passionate
being minimized.
Alessi is. Like,
The next
so
sentence.
passionate, so
I don't know
feel-
exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry, but it's not, that timestamp is
At
not
this point, I'm
indicative of the time of the search or any URL that's visited. But the first part of it is, I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry. Did I read that correctly?
You read 100% correctly.
Thank you. Now, if we could turn to page
He's like,
130 of your
"Thank you, I know."
testimony.
I need to object.
Yeah. No, I really
I'll
do
see
like.
both.
Oh no. Okay. I'm only gonna watch a little bit of more of this because I realize we have a lot to go still.
Google search.
Okay,
Even
she
out.
went on for like forever the last time, and now she's going on again. Actually, we might get through it. We
Thank
might
you
get
for
through
your
her.
patience,
She better
Ms.
not
Hyde.
be.
Absolutely, sir.
What I'd like to do is to
what we're
go
doing
back
now,
to
'cause
your testimony in the first
I'm
proceedings,
not watching
and
her
we can
again.
go back to page
I'm just saying.
1-30.
I am there.
Skipping her
Thank you.
tomorrow.
So I am going
No, I don't got time for that.
to go back just because there's been some
Hell
time to give some
no.
context. So we're talking about the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, correct, at this page location?
No.
We've been talking about that for several pages. Yes, that's correct.
You're absolutely correct. We've been
Oh my
talking about it for
God.
several pages. And bear with me, I think this
No
may
problem.
be either the second to last or the last. So there you testified with
I don't
regard,
like how
this was
she's-
when you're referring to
I
an
don't like
artifact, you've
that.
agreed that timestamp is a fair synonym. You say on line 5, that means it wasn't in the regular database, it was in the write-ahead log. And to Celebrite's credit, that tool
Sergeant
actually parsed the write-ahead log
Bukaki.
and displayed
Buchanan
it
returns
where
to the
the other
stand.
tools did not. So did I read that correctly, number 1?
You read it correctly.
So
Done.
am I correct that
Tomorrow's gonna be
here,
too good.
what you're stating is Celebrite was actually showing the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp at that time during your testimony in the first
On
proceeding?
that date, that is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so I just wanted to establish that, and you were
Absolutely.
giving Celebrite credit for actually showing that timestamp at that time of 2:27:40 at the time of your testimony back in June of 2024, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so now
Yeah,
let's
tomorrow.
go
Sergeant
to
Bukaki.
page 1-36,
136, you said?
136, yes.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
And on line 12, you note that so Celebrite and Magnet Axiom,
Mhm.
and then you elaborate, both Celebrite Physical Analyzer, which is a specific tool, right, of
Correct.
Celebrite, and Magnet Axiom, another specific tool, correct?
Correct.
Both have file system viewers that then have SQLite database viewers. And you, skipping down to line 17, you talk about they don't allow for deep analysis of the write-ahead logs, which is why in my analysis I use the specialized Sanderson
Yeah, I do
forensic
know what that
browser
is.
for SQLite, correct? I read
That
that
is
I don't call him that. That's
So,
what we call him in
is
the
it
Canary
fair to
Trap.
say that what you did up to this point in June of 2024, with regard to the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on January 29, 2022, you applied a variety of tools to
So,
analyze?
like, I think what happened in the first trial, so like all the online people were calling Sergeant Buchanan Sergeant Bukaki, and then during the first trial, I think it was Jen McCabe. She came on the stand and she accidentally called him Bukaki instead of Buchanan. So then everybody just like trolled her and kept it that way. So I know what that means, but I make it, baby.
Lies the issue of when
Alice,
did the
thank you
Google
for that.
search occur that you
I'm
use
gonna
the
like
words
that.
associated with a
I'm gonna
Safari
like that.
Google search, house long to die in the
That's his
cold.
real name.
There's a little
Mechanic
bit
is
of
his real
wording
name.
I would correct there if that's okay.
Right, but so let me see if I can ask the question
That'd be great.
a different, more simple way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you used a variety of tools to analyze that house long to die in the cold search, correct?
Plus manual analysis and testing, yes.
Plus manual analysis and testing. All righty, now let's leave the testimony
Okay.
and let's go to your next report. And your next report is December 2024. Do I have
I have
the
it correct.
chronology correct, Ms.
That
Hyde?
is correct.
So in December of 2024, just approximately 6 months ago, you issued another
Shane went to
report,
bed?
correct?
That is correct.
And I'm gonna what?
And you got the request for that report also from
What
the
am I gonna-
Norfolk District Attorneys,
you're gonna-
correct?
That is correct.
And you state in regard, well, that report regarded the analysis of the same timestamp,
Oh, I'm
correct?
keeping tabs on you.
Correct.
To
Shane.
22740 timestamp.
Mhm.
And
Water refill.
in that report, under relevant
Okay, I'm saying-
findings, you state, and this is December of 2024, so it's from your May 2023 report,
Your social.
it's approximately a year and
find
seven,
you.
a year
Where you
and
live.
a half, is that approximately from your May 23rd
What
report?
kind of water you're intaking? I
Approximately.
don't
Approximately
believe
a year
it.
and a half?
Yes.
So a year and
Water
a half after
refill.
what we just reviewed in your May 23rd report,
You'll like
and
it
then just
or learn to.
months after the testimony of June, right? So about 6 months after your
6 months later.
June testimony
What do
that
you
we
mean,
just went
6
through, you went and looked at this issue again, correct?
That is correct.
And isn't it correct
You'll learn to.
that when you
learn to.
were asked to
I'll probably
look
like
at
it.
the same
Depends what you're
time
talking about.
in December of 2024,
Not hide.
that Celebrite removed the timestamp from their tools?
Celebrate did remove that timestamp from the tool. That is correct.
Okay?
Really
And that
just a file.
timestamp was the subject
Oh, yeah.
of extensive reports and testimony that you participated in the first proceeding, correct?
That is correct.
And even though that timestamp, 2:27:40 a.m.,
I don't
it
believe it's
showed
this
up
water. It's
in
thinking
Celebrite
like gas
tools,
mask.
magnet forensic
Bring
axiom
it on.
showed up, that was removed by Celebrate, correct?
Celebrate no longer reports it. The evidence is still in the data. I want to be clear, just that it doesn't change the data. They just removed it from their automated parsing and reporting.
Right, so they
Correct.
removed it from their automated parsing and reporting, correct?
Yes, they did. That is correct.
Okay. At 12:30, I'm
However,
cutting this. Not
your
done with
former
Alstain's
company-
girlfriend, but we'll be back.
Magnet forensic
I don't know. I
axiom
have to go to work tomorrow.
still shows it. Yeah.
Okay.
Magnet Axiom Forensics currently shows it as a
Axiom
carved
is-
artifact and still shows that, and
We're
gives
gonna
a
be doing
description in their
shit
artifact
on there
reference
tomorrow.
guide as to what they believe causes that artifact.
I'm gonna ask the question.
I want
Yes,
to like start going on TikTok and doing like more lifestyle fun stuff rather than like true crime stuff. So make sure you're following me on there because we're about to get freaky. Wait, last time I was on there, I got banned. Okay, I'll try to be good and not get banned. Not banned. I was like on timeout or whatever.
Axiom forensic.
Whatever that is.
You used to be the director.
How did they even
of
put me
forensics.
on?
That is correct.
Still shows that.
Of all people.
Yes,
But Celebrate doesn't.
I don't even
In the
believe
that is
automated
correct.
Funny.
That is correct in their automated parsing.
And you would agree that magnet forensic Magnet Forensics is a very reputable company, correct?
Correct.
Because it's a YouTube. Whatever, that's not it. That's not it. I feel like this is being a little selective, and I'm not
Let's
appreciating
go back
it.
to your December 2024
Nah.
report.
I should have followed.
Do you recall just
pursued it or
moments ago
whatever.
when we went through your testimony in June of 2024 in the first proceeding,
But I was
where
thinking
you
we
stated
could go
various
there
times how it
and
was, I'll use the
have a
term best
lot more fun
practices,
than we do
to
on
use
YouTube.
multiple
You know?
tools to analyze the timestamp?
Correct.
Mature audiences only.
And you used many tools.
Mature audiences
back
only.
then
Don't
to
come there with
analyze
your
them.
shit and your drama. What? She has an opinion. Who? Debbie said you're not allowed on YouTube. On YouTube or TikTok? You mean TikTok? Well, I'll be on TikTok.
Timestamp, and you
I
testified to
don't
those many
care.
tools
They
on
can
your
send me
direct
out all they
examination,
want.
correct?
Correct. Yes.
However, in December of 2024, when you
I need to behave.
returned to analyze the 22740 timestamp, how many tools did you use to analyze that timestamp? Can you give me just a number? How many tools?
At least 4.
Well, in your report, let's go to your report, which your report
Oh,
says.
you're not allowed to see YouTube on TikTok.
So
That's
in
it.
your report,
21 plus. On
you
TikTok?
state
I better leave
that
them.
under relevant
Oh,
findings,
Swan
do
Dog,
you
you better be
not,
there.
that
You better be there.
review of data from Celebrite shows that the artifact of a Google search from a Safari suspended state tab with the search term "house long to die in cold," and I'm going to skip over. In addition to my own previous report,
okay, I
no
just wanna
longer
finish
shows a
this.
last visited time.
I think that is
I'm gonna do
not
it.
clear.
I need to get caught up
The
on
skipping there makes it sound like my report no longer shows that, and that's not what's being
That's a
stated.
fair statement. That's a fair statement. Let me rephrase it
Thank
this way.
you.
You're welcome.
I'll be a zombie. I'll be a robot.
In this report,
Mhm.
you speak about
I'm addicted
Celebrite
to the true
release
crime.
reports, correct?
Are you referring to
staying
the
up
Celebrate
and
release
finishing
notes
The
that come
release
out?
notes at the bottom,
Perfect.
right? You referred to that?
That's correct.
And that release note states that
Albert
Celebrate
tomorrow.
has removed the timestamp value from records, and I'm assuming that's a reference to
I'll work tomorrow and
Celebrite.
Celebrite no.
I need to fill you guys in on my work situation. We're gonna talk about it on TikTok. We're gonna have a little shit talking session. Oh, you better be ready for it.
longer parses that result. That is the statement in this report. Correct.
Right.
I better hope no one
And
at my
so
work
I'm going
watches
to go
my
to page
TikToks.
4 of your report.
For sure.
Bitch, I'm not talking about
And
shit.
I'm going to go down all the way
Uh-oh.
down to the conclusion. In that report, is there reference to any
Causing
company
trouble.
other than Celebrate in this entire report? Is
In
there?
this
Not very
report,
much.
no.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like you can
Now let's
handle
go
it.
to
Hong Kong. You can.
your prior testimony in the first proceeding, where you said that it was important to use multiple tools.
Absolutely.
Do you still stand by your position that you've given today and that you gave in June, that it's important to use multiple tools?
Absolutely.
Now, let's go back
Oh,
to the
absolutely,
issue
she said.
of the extraction of Jen McCabe's phone.
Jen Macabre.
And what I want to do is to cover a concept and see if I've got this correctly. Are you familiar with the phrase Apple source codes?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat?
Absolutely, no worries, sir. Are you familiar with the phrase Apple source codes?
Apple's source code? Absolutely. Yes.
And isn't it a fact that Apple keeps its source codes proprietary, meaning very few people have access to it.
That's correct. It is closed source is the term we would use.
Closed source.
That would be the term of art, correct?
And they keep it so close
Term of art.
that they call it closed source.
And it's not just Apple. Lots of tools are closed source. That just means that the code isn't available like it would be for the tool I mentioned earlier, iLeap. That's an open source tool. Anyone can look at the code. For Apple, we cannot go look at the code that makes your phone.
Chill out.
That's correct.
And
Chill out.
isn't it the case,
Just
and
like
I refer to
relax.
that as the MB postulate. It's a shorthanded, but I don't need to have you
Applesauce.
refer to it that way.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that phrase? I was unfamiliar with it.
I'm going to skip it.
Okay,
I'll
thank
just
you.
go on. Basically, the concept that Apple has
You want
has source codes that are closed
You want me to
sources.
feed
So I
you?
just refer to them as Apple's closed sources. Wouldn't the best information about when a
Or
search
do you want my
occurred,
size
what it's
up top? Is that what you
associated
mean?
with, wouldn't the best information be in the Apple source code to answer that question?
It is acceptable in
Oh,
forensic
you mean-
science and in accordance with
You
the
mean
NIST
Apple
Science Foundation
source.
papers to conduct
Oh, my bad.
testing
I was being
to
inappropriate.
determine
Okay, sorry,
how the
Bobs.
functionality of something works.
My,
You do not need access to the
That's
source code
actually
to be
like
able to speak to an artifact.
my question isn't that. My question is, isn't the best place, the best place to go is to the Apple
Some
source
people won't
codes themselves?
understand.
Or are you saying these physical analyzer tools are
Because
just
that's
as
Apple
good
sauce.
and the information they pull is just as good as an Apple source code?
Those are very, very, those are incongruent statements. Apple source code is not a healthy way to do an examination because it would be so onerous, and we do not know the level of documentation, we don't know the language. That is not necessarily the most effective way to determine what data is. Forensics tools parse results of how data is. They don't interpret them. The examiner interprets them and provides meaning. And I would like to state that those three things should not be conflated. They are very individual concepts.
I think you misunderstood my question.
I probably did it because that's what I was seeing.
My question is this.
Whoa.
Isn't the best source for information
He's
about
like, you
data in an
misunderstood.
iPhone
Yeah, I did.
contained within Apple source codes?
Not necessarily.
Applesauce?
Because that doesn't perform, operational performance is a better source in a practical sense to being able to determine what something is, as opposed to zillions, and no, I don't know the number because it's closed source, lines of code that may or may not have different levels of documentation. Apple themselves wouldn't be able to, any individual there who has access wouldn't know every feature of how every element works. Testing through the methodologies described in NIST is the accepted methodology in our science, not reviewing the source code.
This is what's wrong with society. It's like she's up there.
I understand what you're saying is, if I got it correct, you correct me. Are you saying that these physical tools make it easier to interpret and view the data?
I did not speak about the tools at all in the statement I just made.
I don't know.
I spoke about manual testing and checking
I can hear
functionality
her
and
blood
what
pressure.
results.
And I'm in the
Parse
medical- I
tools,
can
again, these are
hear
three
it.
separate concepts. The concept
can
of
hear it.
code and actually
No,
reviewing code to make a
her.
determination is different from parse tool results, is different from doing testing and validation. Those are separate concepts. They should not be commingled as if they equate to each other.
So have you ever learned of, have you ever spoken with Mr. Whiffen? Ian Whiffen?
I have spoken with Mr. Whiffen historically, but not since the term of this trial.
Okay. Have you ever spoken to Mr. Whiffen about whether the Apple source codes are the best source of information about topics like timestamps? Have you ever spoken? That's just a
I have
question.
not had
Have
that
you ever talked to him?
conversation with Mr. Whiffen, no.
Okay, all right.
Chill out.
I want to move on to, and do you regard Mr. Whiffen as a reputable?
Mr. Whiffen is a reputable forensics examiner, and I've actually reviewed his work in other instances and peer reviewed his papers.
So you have regard for his reputation?
I have regard for his
I'm sorry,
reputation.
we have to wait for each other.
Oh,
to
yes,
talk
I'm
through the
sorry.
It's all right,
Yeah,
no worries.
let him talk.
So you
And then you
regard,
talk.
have regard for the
Damn it.
opinions of Mr. Whiffen generally, correct?
Absolutely,
And you
yes.
believe he has a solid reputation, correct?
Absolutely, that is correct.
Now let's turn to the History DB database. You are familiar
Like
with History
35
DB?
minutes of this,
Are you,
maybe
I'm sorry,
30.
History DB, are
You
you
guys do it?
familiar with
Yes,
that
yeah.
phrase?
I am familiar with that phrase.
Okay.
I might get another drink.
Do any of the house
I'm
long
breaking all my rules.
searches appear in the
That's
History DB?
Yeah,
In this
well,
instance, no,
one
we do
second.
not have artifacts in the history DB of either of those two searches.
So I want to just repeat that in a different way. So the History DB, is that considered a valid and valuable source of information in an iPhone?
That is a valuable artifact for Safari history. That is correct.
But the house-long searches we've been discussing do not appear in that History DB, do they?
That is correct.
You spoke about PYF, PDF on your direct testimony. Do you recall that?
I do. It's the Python framework for PDF. It is a GitHub tool, one can download from GitHub to utilize to create PDFs using Python code. So a developer and a tool would integrate that to create a PDF.
And the PYF, PDF can have the variables set, correct?
Yes, the Python script allows the developer to set things such as their name that they created the document. Yes.
I want to go to the extraction of Jen McCabe's phone that you talked about on direct examination. Is the hash value signed or unsigned?
A hash value isn't signed. I believe your question you're asking me is if the Adobe document that contained the
Oh my God,
PDF
she's
that
still going on.
contained the hash values. Are you asking me if that's signed? Because a hash value is something that matches. A hash value isn't signed.
Let me
A
ask you
hash
this way.
value? What
there
is
any
that?
hash value associated with
Like
Jen
hash
McCabe's
tag or
phone
like hash
is
that you
unsigned?
smoke? I don't know.
That is not a valid question. I apologize. We don't refer to hash values as being signed or unsigned. We would refer to the PDF that contains that value as being signed or unsigned.
Have you ever read a report of Mr. Ian Whiffen in this case?
I have, but I have to be clear. I have not read all of Ian's reports. I've only read some, so I don't know if
Okay.
Do
I
you,
read some of his earlier reports.
do you
Are we
recall
done then?
reading a report of Mr.
I'm
Whiffen where
done with
he
this
references a hash value being unsigned associated with the iPhone of Jennifer McCabe?
Can I see said report so I can validate if I did or did not? I'm not sure based on just that
Oh my God,
because
I'm so sick of
I wouldn't
people
use the
asking
term
for a
hash value
report.
being signed. I did see a report in which Mr. Whiffen spoke to the PDF not being signed.
I just want to try to shortcut this and work off your last statement. You're now saying you do recall seeing a report of Mr. Whiffen where he said a PDF was unsigned?
I need to see, I do remember him referencing the PDF. I would need to see the report, especially since the characterization of hash value being unsigned is not a term of art that I am familiar with in our field.
Let me ask if you agree or disagree with this statement.
You have some, Small Dog?
This value can
You have
be
some?
used to compare with the original hash calculated
Share.
at the time of extraction in order to validate the extraction data.
Share.
However, this requires
hashish.
authentication of the original hash value, which is not possible with gray key extractions, as the PDF containing the extraction hash value is unsigned. Therefore, this hash value could be used as a suggestion of authentication, but cannot be guaranteed 100%. Do you agree or disagree?
His statement there says the PDF is unsigned, not that the hash value is unsigned.
Right, but
it's nonetheless unsigned, correct?
The PDF is not signed. That is a correct statement. Gray key PDFs that purport that value are not an Adobe signed document.
Do you know the history of the extraction of Jen McCabe's phone? It's yes or no?
Can you provide more clarity? What do you mean? Do you mean from the time the image was made? Do you mean from the time the device was received? Because I don't know the information pertaining to the receipt of the device into evidence, and then I only have the documentation of the image forward. So I want to be clear about what period we're talking about.
It's an excellent point, and I am going to follow up with some questions.
Okay.
Why did he get all weird?
Doesn't the extraction from a phone start with the raw data, raw image? Tell me, when someone brings a phone in, what's the first step that gets taken in order to do a full file extraction? What's the first step?
It depends. There's got to be steps with regard to network isolation. I need to know if the device is AFU or BFU at that point. So I don't have that information from this case, if that is the question. I get from the image forward.
So what I'd like to do, and this may be my last section of questioning, I'd like you to describe the ideal situation as to getting the most reliable data from an iPhone from the start. What's the most reliable way to do it?
I would say the most reliable way is following the recently released SWIG-DE Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence document on best practices of evidence handling, preservation, and imaging. I may have that title slightly out of order, but it is a document released this January.
And tell me what that is.
Sure. In that, the first thing, from which point are we starting? Are we starting like extracting the data using a tool, or are we talking on scene, taking the device into evidence?
The latter.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to ensure that you are isolating the device. This is also going to depend on condition from the network. So typically this would be done with a Faraday enclosure in a best practice. However, there are alternative ways of isolating from the network, such as disabling all of the communication protocols, such as Wi-Fi, airplane mode, etc. The next step, once you've isolated, but prior to, you also want to make sure you're continuing battery stat. So if a device is on, you want to keep it powered on. If it's off, you want to keep it powered off. That's a general statement. So the best way to do that is to attach a battery charger. Just like when your battery runs low, you plug in a charger in the back of these battery packs. We do that with that before we put it in the Faraday bag. A Faraday bag is an enclosure that blocks signals from coming to the device. This is so a remote wipe command couldn't be sent, or so that more data isn't received to the phone, because phones are live and constantly obtaining data. So we're going to have it with a battery pack in the Faraday, presuming it was on. Again, I don't know the status of this device. The next steps are going to depend on what state that device is, and what make and model that device is, and what the current support for that device is. There are multiple types of extraction methods of phones. In the modern day on iOS, a full file system image, what we had on the devices in question in this case, is considered the gold standard because it has the most robust information. So at this point, the next question is what's the best image type? And that's going to depend on if we have a passcode or if we don't have a passcode.
If I could,
please.
And I'm going to allow you to continue.
Yeah, please.
I want to break it down for the jury. So what I now want to do, you've stopped at a certain
She's
point.
nice.
You talked about
she's
securing,
a nice lady.
what I would call securing the phone.
I will say that.
Right? And then
Don't
making sure that there's
she's
no
nice
data
lady.
swipes.
I don't even think it's anything rude,
airplane
but
mode, Faraday bag, Faraday box, right?
I think she's just a little much
Do you
on the
know
stand,
whether
but I
any
think
of
she's a
those
nice lady.
protocols were followed for either the iPhone of Jen McCabe or John O'Keefe?
As I mentioned, I was not there for those processes. I don't have documentation of it. As mentioned, what started where my receipt of the device is from the image.
Exactly. So you don't know.
I can't testify to processes I did not or was not available or aware of.
Fair enough. But do you have a little bit of hint as to whether the phone of Mr. John O'Keefe was properly secured in airplane mode, a Faraday bag, or a Faraday box, based upon your own report of the iPhone of John McCabe? Can you determine that from page 5 of your report?
Obviously, there is data signals that are still being made and created. I believe that is what you're referring to. So the assumption is that I don't know at which point a Faraday bag is employed, but I also want to be clear, I don't know when, I don't have information outside of the digital forensics realm about this case, so I don't know precisely when the phone was taken into custody by law enforcement.
Fair enough. So assume that Mr. O'Keefe was deceased around the latest 9 a.m. on January 29th, 2022. Isn't there activity on that phone, health data activity, up to around noon of January 29th?
Health data activity would continue to be reported regardless of if the device was isolated from the network or not. Health data has to do with the movement of the device. So if the device was being moved even within a Faraday bag, that data would still be populated.
How about location data?
Location data is unlikely to be reported in a device that is Faraday enclosed, but I do not know what location data you're referring to, so I cannot speak in absolutes without having a better reference to the artifacts in question. If you're saying it's in my report, I'll look at it, but again, I never knew when the phone was seized, so it was not part of my initial analysis. Do I have permission to look at that time, Nick?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. So bear with me. It's a big report, as you know.
It is a big report.
She's a nice lady. Yeah, I like her.
And it was
I
at
like
the
her.
bottom of
She's
my
all right. I
Pardon me?
like her for
It
all
was at the
things.
bottom of my stack. I had to lift up the other ones to find it. All right. So,
Your Honor, may I assist and point her to a
That same
page?
fell asleep. That's
That'd be great.
hilarious.
If you could turn to that report on your page 47 and continue on to
Oh.
page 50.
I do see incoming data that is consistent with
Are
the
you gonna make me
device
spit out my
not
drink?
being Faradayed, such as the receipt of SMS messages, notifications from Ring, etc.
So,
Oh my God, that's funny,
the
Austin.
iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe was not secured in the manner you described before we got to this, as would be the best practice with regard to getting the most accurate data
Hi,
from
Philip.
the phone. That is, once
That's
it
funny.
comes in, that it's to either be put in
She's a nice
airplane
lady.
mode, Faraday bag,
She's
or
a nice
Faraday
lady.
box.
I like her.
By your own
I
report,
do.
you see activity.
I do see
decided I
activity.
like her.
It was not Faradayed. Faraday prevents wiping of the device and additional data. So actually, in this instance, it doesn't appear
Jordan,
that
are
the
you a
device
troll?
was at risk of wipe
Just
because it
wondering.
was not wiped. And we actually have more data because we get to see the data that continue to come into the device. I'm not saying that's in accordance with best practice. I'm saying that that's what I see based off of what you just had me review in the data.
It sounds like you're trying to justify.
Oh, I'm not
You
trying to
are
justify.
trying. You are
Me.
trying to
It sounds
justify.
like you're trying to justify the
No?
fact
Okay,
it wasn't
good.
secured. Am I correct?
Thank you.
No, you're incorrect. I'm just stating
No,
we
you
have,
are trying to
you
justify,
asked if we
lady.
had more data or less data. We actually have more data
You're
with it
in a
not being
car.
Faradayed, but
She's
no, best
helping
practice would be to
Joanne.
Faraday.
You're in a car.
That
I
wasn't my
100%
question.
agree.
My question wasn't, is there more or less data? My question was simply, doesn't your own report
Sure.
show activity
Justin,
up
thank
until
you,
noon
Philip. Oh,
on
you're so
January
sweet. Thank you, Philip.
29, 2022?
Correct. And for clarity, my scope was till noon, so I don't know if there was activity beyond that.
Right, but as far as your scope goes, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
There is activity on this
Absolutely.
phone,
Absolutely. The
which
phone,
shows that it was not put in airplane mode, it was not put in a Faraday bag, and it was not put in a Faraday box, and that failure is not best practice.
correct. It is not in accordance with the best practices. I agree. I would have Faradayed it.
Thank you. So
Oh,
If
But that's,
presuming
that's
all
okay.
things.
I have no further questions.
I think
Thank
she
you
just
for
helped
answering my questions,
defense.
Ms. Hyde.
Thank you for your questions. Have a great day.
Oh,
Brennan, redirect.
Thank you.
I think the redirect is only like 10 minutes. Oh my God. Wait. Oh, wait. Was that Brennan who was just talking to her? Or... Oh, no. Okay. That was Alessi. So now Brennan is going up.
Of course.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
You're welcome. You were asked when you began working on analyzing phones in this case, and you said it was in May. Was that of May of 2023?
May of 2023, May 4th, 2023 is the email I have of a note. Thank
Okay,
you.
he just put
Yes.
his pen and now he's getting it
It's
out.
easy to remember because May the 4th be with you.
When you first
Oh.
were asked to begin
Oh my God, I
work
kind
on
of like
this
her
case
for
in May
that.
of
She said, May the 4th
2023,
be with you. Dude,
what was
Okay.
the catalyst for you
I
to
like
begin
her.
working on this?
she can sit with us. She can come hang out at Milliverse.
I was
I'll say,
contacted
I
by
like your
Mr. Kelly
girlfriend.
and then
That's-
contracted.
I like her.
A
May
SAL
the
was
4th be
signed,
with you.
and I began work on the initial request to look at those two search
No, I do.
terms
I
on
like
January
her. I'm a
29th. Does
Star
that
Wars
answer your
fan girl.
question?
Sure.
Okay.
Was there a certain claim that was lodged that you were to focus on?
I was to focus on the two search terms from January
I like her.
29th, 2022.
And would you inform why? Was there any context to that?
Probably, I don't recall the exact conversation that I had with the DA's office and Lieutenant Tully at that time, but I'm assuming that I was given that context. I have in my notes that I was to look at those two searches on that date and do an analysis about those.
Were you asked to reach any particular result?
No, I was asked to provide my report, not to reach a particular result.
Were you asked to reach a conclusion
That was actually a really good
that the
answer.
227 timestamp was inaccurate?
No.
When you engaged in your
Okay, well, we have
analysis,
like
was
10
it
more minutes.
independent of the district attorney's office?
My analysis was independent of the district attorney's office. I actually, in the first case, had very little communication with the district attorney's office during the period of my analysis.
Was there any input
Tucking me in.
from any outside
Make up a-
source on what your
Stop.
result
Help
or
her
ultimate
wake her
opinions
up.
would be?
No,
Would you ever
God,
allow
I'll
anybody
see.
to affect your input?
no.
Throughout the
Okay.
course of your
Go on.
efforts with this phone, have there been changes to software?
Absolutely. As mentioned on direct, software updates are near monthly.
I want to ask you about changes to the Celebrite software. You were asked about certain reports you wrote. Were the reports that you wrote relative
So that's
to
Hyde, Kentucky.
different requests for analysis?
That's rude.
Yes,
The report regarding, report number 3, regarding changes to Celebrite software, was that report limited to
No.
the timestamp change, or was it to include other efforts?
the scope of that report, may I review what I have documented as the
Please.
scope? I believe we're talking about report 2. That's the one about the Celebrate change.
Yes.
And I have the request was to understand changes made in the newer version of Celebrate Physical Analyzer to artifacts pertaining to the timeline of a particular Google search on January 29, 2022, namely how's long to die in cold.
When you looked at the Celebrite software and report, was the timestamp characterization changed or removed?
Yes, it was removed. That timestamp in the version starting in May of 2024, Celebrate actually removed that, and they put a release note stating that it was due to the ambiguity and potential for misconstruing the meaning of that data.
Was there any other releases informing other reasons why that was changed other than the potential that somebody could misconstrue, misinterpret, or distort the information?
Can I read Celebrate's own statement?
Please.
Celebrate's statement in
To yourself.
Oh,
To myself? Okay, roger that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Roger that. I do like it. Okay. Whoa.
Can you repeat the
Share with
question?
us,
Adam?
was there any reason other than the concern about misinterpreting or
They
distorting?
said that
Your Honor, they said.
Okay, so what's your understanding?
my understanding is that it is not a reliable timestamp, and that is why Celebrate removed it.
You were asked about Axiom. Axiom, is it the same or different?
Magnet Axiom and Celebrate Physical Analyzer are two different tools that both do forensic analysis of mobile phones.
You were asked whether Axiom still has a timestamp that was similar to Celebrate before the change.
Axiom shows what I spoke to on direct, where they have it as a parsed versus carved result. And so that particular result shows in the suspended state DB artifact as carved.
Do companies like Axiom and Celebrate give releases, updates, information about how to interpret their reports?
So Axiom actually has a document that's released with it called the Artifact Reference Guide.
I know she
And that
speaks a lot of
actually
like
gives a brief
progress.
description of the fields and of artifacts.
I don't know, I'm a nerd
All
though.
tools, when they release new artifacts, they put out in a release note. Not
like
all
it.
artifacts are clearly documented that are parsed. However, all of the vendors regularly put out webinars and blog posts that explain their new artifacts, but not necessarily all.
Is there any releases or cautions from Axiom on the same issue about misinterpreting a timestamp?
Axiom in
Just like what
their
she's saying about
artifact
the phone.
reference guide for this artifact does speak to the possibility
I
of
don't really get it.
misinterpretation and states
But
that the timestamp can be earlier than the
what I'm
search
getting
had
from
occurred
this is-
based on what different reasons could cause
you wanna?
that timestamp.
Don't
Let me ask you
Google
about a Faraday
how
bag.
long
You said that
you got in
best
the
practices is to isolate an item in a Faraday bag.
That's correct.
Do you have any information, or did you know the travel of Mr. O'Keefe's phone that night or where it went after?
I'm sorry, can you clarify the time period?
On January 29, 2022, from say 6:04 in the morning until later that afternoon.
Don't
I
Google it.
did not have access to that information.
Don't Google
When you analyze data from certain devices, are they always placed in a
it.
Faraday
And don't hang out with
bag
drunk people. It's
immediately after an incident?
Don't.
There's a lot of times when this is situation dependent. An example of when you would not put something in a
Don't do
Faraday
it.
bag is when you have a deceased victim and you're going to be using their biometrics to possibly unlock the device. Because a Faraday bag is enclosed and then can't be opened, if your intent, if you don't have the password, is to use a deceased person's fingerprint to unlock the phone, we don't want to put the person's finger in the Faraday bag. So usually those phones would not be Faradayed, but they would typically have airplane mode enabled.
Huh?
Or SIM card removed. But no, SIM card removed doesn't
Mommy.
actually work on iOS, so I won't get into that.
Understanding or having the opinion
Okay,
that this
she's
item was
kinda
not
funny.
placed in a Faraday bag at 6:04 in the morning, does that in any way affect your opinions about the data that you analyzed on this phone and the conclusions that you reached regarding Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
It does not have any impact on the conclusions other than the fact that it wasn't Faradayed and more data came in. So we have additional data.
You were asked a very
I want to
specific
Faraday
question
everything. What the
about
frick does that
history
even
DB,
mean?
and it was simply whether or not how
weird.
long to die in cold, whether it appeared in history
God.
DB.
I can't
And that
listen anymore.
isolated question, does that provide any context for you and your analysis and conclusions about how long to die in cold,
Faraday
and that
means-
it occurred at 6:23 and 6:24 the next morning?
What does that mean?
The absence of the history DB artifact doesn't mean that that search didn't occur at that time. We have multiple corroborating artifacts,
look it
which
up.
is
It's
usually what
about
we look for.
electricity.
Two artifacts that demonstrate is like very good. You don't necessarily need that, but in this instance, we have both from the Mobile Safari plist, which tracks the history, as well as the Knowledge C DB. So we do have two artifacts showing that those searches were done at that time. Of course, 6 seconds apart for the difference between the Knowledge C and the Mobile Safari
It's in a
plist.
dead person's finger.
On cross-examination, you were not
Yeah.
asked questions about Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
That is
but
correct.
You were on cross-examination, so let me follow up. You have a report that you authored regarding Mr. O'Keefe's phone,
That is correct.
and you had an opportunity to look at the healthcare data for January 29, 2022.
That is correct.
Page 6 of your report.
Thank you.
I know.
You noted that there were
We're not in a
steps
movie though.
that began at
This is like
12:11:09
real
a.m. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And the way healthcare
Canada.
data works, do you have an understanding whether steps means a
Um,
person actually took a number
I'm
of steps,
scared.
or does it mean something else?
Steps doesn't necessarily mean that you took a number of steps. It's based on the motion of the device. So it could be steps, it could be you're carrying it, it could be that you're in some other kind of motion. You could be on a bicycle, you could, any number of things. And the number of steps is based on the presumed gait, based on the input into the Apple Health app in terms of gender and height. So it determines a gait and then prescribes a number of steps, but it is possible for other things to cause steps to occur.
You were asked specifically if you saw that there were reported movement or health steps at 12:21:10 a.m. and specifically pointed out to you notation or characterization of 80 steps. Is that accurate?
That is what's stored in the database. I try to clarify, as I did for you, sir, that that's what's stored in the database. I'm not saying that 80 steps were taken.
And by the way, in addition to the healthcare analysis, you did some analysis on the movement of a car, didn't you?
For Ms.
Your Honor.
I'm going to deny that question.
Can these health steps occur if somebody's holding a phone while traveling in a car?
As mentioned in my report, it's caused by motion. It could be various motions that could cause it. You could be using an elliptical, you could be in a vehicle, you could be on a bicycle. It's not necessarily steps taken.
Based on your analysis of Mr. O'Keefe's phone and the report that was pointed out to you on cross-examination, and do you have information or opinion where Mr. O'Keefe's phone was located
We literally have 10 moments.
around
I say that last
12:21:10 while those steps
I lied.
registered?
Objection, Your Honor. So,
I think that's beyond the scope of the class.
It was pointed out to you at 12:21:10 there was a registered 80 steps. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. And then you were also asked about the last healthcare data, the last movements of this phone. And it was pointed out that that began at 12:31:56 for 20 seconds.
That's correct. Per the data in the database.
And is that the last
I woke up at like
movement
3 in the morning.
of Mr. O'Keefe's
Went to
phone
work,
that
came home,
evening
see nothing,
before
go in bed now.
6:04
Already
that you saw when
1
you
a.m. here.
analyzed the entire data in the phone?
Wake up in like 2 hours.
May I have 1 moment to review?
Should I play hockey? Should I play hockey? Is she in trouble for something? Not her.
Before
Can't
the
read
6
it.
a.m. hour.
So that 20 seconds, if it began at 12:31:56, what was the last movement in seconds in time at that time of Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Oh,
I'm
this
sorry,
is
can you
the
repeat?
word.
Yes, if that was a 20-second interval at
That's correct.
12:31:56, what was the last second that evening that Mr. O'Keefe's phone moved?
12:32:16.
And then when you analyzed the phone and were asked about these times, is there any movement between that last movement and 6:04:01?
Between the 12:32?
Yes, 12:32:16 and 6:04:01. Any movement of that phone whatsoever?
I do not have anything supporting that in my report.
Do you know what was going on with Mr. O'Keefe's phone at 6:04:01 a.m. on the morning of January 29, 2022?
I do not know precisely what was happening with his phone at that time in terms of movement. If that's, or are you asking me? I'm sorry. Can you clarify what you mean
Yes.
by the question?
The next movement after 12:32.
Is the
16,
6:04.
6:04:01
Correct.
a.m.
Correct.
Do you have any information about where or why there was movement of the phone at that time?
I don't, that wouldn't be inside my digital evidence, I don't believe.
And the last question is, the next movement at 6:15:14, do you know if that phone was being moved by somebody or somebody else than Mr.
The
O'Keefe?
phone was in motion. I do not know if it could be by a person, it could be on a rail car. I don't think it was on a rail car for clarity, but I don't know what is causing that motion at that
She's
time.
funny.
Thank you very much.
She's like,
Any follow-up, Mr.
Yes,
Lee?
please, Your Honor.
she was like, it could be, but it's not. Who's up there? Is that Alan Jackson?
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Excuse me, please.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh. Oh. Is that a lefty? Oh, yeah.
Ms.
Definitely not
Hyde,
Alan
you
Jackson.
were asked questions by Mr. Brennan just moments ago about Celebrite and release notes. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And did Celebrite, beyond stating that their opinion was the 2:20:40 a.m.
5 minutes.
timestamp was not reliable, did they give any reason at all for why they concluded it was not reliable in that? I'm sorry, we'll wait for the,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
and I'll repeat the question.
Thank you.
And secured or not. You talked about one example of maybe needing to use a biometric to unlock a phone. And that might be a reason, as I understand it, as to why someone might not put it in a Faraday bag or box. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
What is that?
Okay, do you know
Emotional.
whether the passcode was immediately provided
What does that
on the
mean?
phone
Faraday?
of Mr. O'Keefe?
I do not have that information.
Assume that the passcode was immediately provided
Oh,
for the phone of Mr. O'Keefe. Can you think of any other reason why that phone wouldn't be put in airplane mode, Faraday bag, or Faraday box?
Best practice would be to put it in a Faraday bag.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that phone was obviously not
What does that
put
mean?
in
What the
airplane
hell does
mode,
that mean?
Faraday box, or Faraday bag after 6:04 a.m. on January 29, 2022.
What is that? I don't
correct?
even know what that is. What's
Correct.
going on?
Now let's go to,
Well,
I'm very
so
overwhelmed.
I don't know if at some point past 12 o'clock. My report only goes to noon, so just for clarity, I don't know
Fair enough.
anything past noon.
fair enough, but
Fair
from
enough.
6:04
Don't say
a.m.
anymore. Leave.
until approximately noon on
Correct.
January 29,
I wanna hear about
2022,
the
at
Faraday.
least that time, that phone is not in airplane mode in a Faraday bag or a Faraday box, correct?
It would appear such. Because I didn't analyze past that,
Oh my God, it's going to
I
haunt me
don't
the
know
rest
if it
of my
had
life.
been
The Faraday.
potentially Faradayed and then it broke Faraday and got data, but I don't suspect that based on this. It appears that that data was live. But I just have to speak to the fact that I just don't know because I didn't go past noon.
But you're going past noon.
Right.
I'm not.
Okay.
My
yeah.
question,
6
and
a.m. to
I'm-
noon, it does not appear to be Faraday.
So to be clear, from 6:04 a.m. on January 29, 2022, until at least noon of January 29, 2022, the iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe is not in airplane mode, it's not in a Faraday bag, and it's not a Faraday box, correct?
Unless it was in a broken Faraday bag, like they put it and it was failing.
Oh, here we go with the Faraday bag.
Yeah, it does not appear to have been placed in Faraday
How,
bag.
all right.
No, I'm
I'll-
just being honest. You should test your Faraday bags. They go bad. I use Dr. Katz's testing methodology, but 100%, it appears to have been receiving signal for that entire period and not in a Faraday bag, which would be best practice unless biometrics were needed.
So let's now go to hopefully what are the last two categories of questions. With regard to the iPhone of Jen McCabe, do you have any knowledge as to whether over 200 calls were auto-deleted on her phone. You analyzed it.
We can see that calls were auto-deleted. You're asking me if the number of, I just want to make sure I understand the question. If the number of calls that were auto-deleted, if that exceeded 200?
My
Must
question
be
is,
watching this
do
part.
you
I googled
know
it.
whether
What does
there
it say?
was auto-deletions on Jen McCabe's phone? Do you know that?
Isn't it something in like
I'm
Europe or
uncomfortable with the
something?
term auto-deletions because
How
I
about
don't know
deletions?
what that is inferring.
Okay. Did you analyze her phone at all for deletions?
I analyzed her phone to see if there had been deletions.
We're still this
of
paper. This is
call-offs,
over in like
and what
1
I
minute.
found was
No,
that there
in like
were
30 seconds.
records that were removed by the
Privacy
system
tags that
and
blocks
not
us.
recoverable
Oh,
from that
that's a
database,
Faraday.
but were recoverable from biomes.
Understood. Now, what I'd like to do is to address your answer in response to Mr. Brennan's questions, where you
Thank you for that.
said that the issue with regard to Mr. O'Keefe's, or just generally your proposition, that there was no impact on your conclusion because more data had been obtained. Did I get that correct?
I believe my statement was there was no impact on my conclusion with the fact that it had not been in a Faraday.
Right. So isn't it though the case that when a phone's not in a Faraday and is therefore active, data can be overwritten?
Yes.
So
Oh.
If data can be overwritten when it's not in a Faraday, you can lose that data, correct?
Is there data that we're concerned? Yes, theoretically.
Right.
Yes.
You talked about, in response to Attorney Brennan, the 12/31/56
He's gonna end it here. Every
steps. And you said the last, according to you, last movement, 12/32/16. Do you recall those questions?
I recall the questions.
To boil it down, isn't correct that that phone was moving at that time?
May I check the timestamp again? I apologize. There's a lot of timestamps going back and forth.
Please do.
Oh, wow.
12/31/56? Is that
Yeah, that's the start. Yep.
Oh, yes, this one there definitely is. Yes.
So, doesn't matter what kind of movement, but that phone was moving starting at 12/31/56 and still moving until 12/32/16 a.m. on January 29, 2022, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate again your answer.
That was it. We're ending it there. Tomorrow we will continue. I'm behind, but we're getting there. Oh, we got through another day. Tap that like button on the way out. Thank you for hanging out. It's way past my bedtime. But don't give me that shit. It's way past my bedtime. I plan to be live to do more Can Read tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna cover Diddy. Maybe I kind of want to do 2 days of Diddy in a row. So maybe I'll do Diddy on Thursday. We'll see. But nonetheless, thank you for being. I have to sneeze. But I always have to sneeze when I'm on I do have to sneeze. It's morning time. Yeah, it's 1:15 a.m. for me, and I have to get up in a few hours. So, sorry, I just sneezed. Thank you. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Yeah, I have a deep dive coming. We'll continue Can Read, and we'll continue Diddy. All right. Sounds good. Have a good night. Don't miss me too much. See you tomorrow. Bye. We'll see you later.